Chat. What's up, chat? Can you hear me, chat? Hello. Check, check. 1, 2, 7, 4, 7. Loud. Okay, we're good. Those of you that tune in early get to hear that bullshit. Thankfully, it's not a lot of you. Am I right, chat? Ooh, I didn't mean to do that. It's fucking Wednesday, mate. That's right. It's fucking Wednesday, mate. It's the day after fucking Tuesday, isn't it? That's right. We're now from the UK. The fucking island out there that Trump don't like much. That's right, chat.
I don't think they like me very much.
That's right. I don't think they like him very much. I don't even know what this is, but this is like a cookie that I got at work. It's purple. It's some like fancy company from probably Marin. Anyway. I'm looking forward to tasting it, but it's probably not going to be very good. Someone said it's super sweet. Must be like a imported cookie or something. No label, of course. Yeah. It's the way they do it. Background noise removal, check. Make it all the way up. That's right. All right, we're sounding pretty good so far. I like it. That's right, folks. I like it a lot. See, one of these days, I'm going to have to learn to do another person's voice. Whoever becomes president. Oh. I don't think I'll be able to do AOC. I'm sorry. Yeah, AOC, I don't know if I can handle that. God, who could I do? Not being able to do my lovable president. I love myself. That's right. Not being able to talk about myself like this. I won't know what to do. Once I'm dead, this guy 87 will have no content. All of his content is him simply acting like Trump, and it sucks. No one cares about him. In fact, they all unsubscribed. That's right. He's the worst streamer. He says he's 87% better than any other streamer. What hubris does he have? That's right. He has a huge ego. This 87 streamer guy, no one cares about him. There is one person that does. Dude, what? Why'd your dumbass subscribe to me on YouTube, BW? Jesus Christ. Forgot about that. All right, chat. We got a playlist for us.
Also, China.
Fuck.
Iran's continuing to Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
Okay, this is the 4th, yes. I have the right playlist.
Yes, I do, boys. My background matches my... Yep.
I gotta stop talking like him. It's not cool. It's not funny anymore, I don't think. No one cares. There's one chatter that does like it, and I'll do it when they come in. So. All right. That's right, chat. No more Trump impersonations for me. I'm done. I retire. I'll do the English accent. I think that's my next best thing that I got. So like, I'm just gonna watch a bunch of, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and things like that, and then I'll come out of it with like a serious problem, and I'll be able to translate it to the screen for you guys. I'll have the fucking most posh accent ever, mate.
The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S.-Israeli war on Iran has entered its 5th day with the U.S. and Israel new waves of intense bombing targeting Tehran and other areas. The reported death toll in Iran has risen to 1,045. U.S. forces say they've struck more than 2,000 targets since Saturday. Israel's also escalating its attack on Lebanon, where it's ordered mass evacuations. Iran's continuing to retaliate by attacking Israeli and U.S. allies across the Gulf.
Of course they are.
Targets reportedly struck by Iran include the U.S. Embassy and CIA station in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the U.S. consulate grounds in Dubai, and
I would not be happy if they were bombing kids.
Earlier today,
just like I'm not happy that any of us are.
The, quote,
legitimate targets, when you're at war and you're getting bombed, you have a right to respond, and you should respond. If you don't respond, you're a pussy. Like you can't not respond.
Structure, unquote.
It's expected.
Meanwhile, an Iranian naval ship has sunk in the Indian Ocean off the southern coast of Sri Lanka after a possible submarine attack. 30 people have survived. 140 others are still missing. Reuters reports sources in Sri Lanka's Navy and Defense Ministry said the vessel had been attacked by a submarine.
The first real war we've ever had.
After President Trump vowed to annihilate Iran's Navy.
This is actually a war.
Iranian officials are expected to soon pick a new supreme leader to replace Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was assassinated Saturday at the start of the U.S.-Israeli attack. Israel's already announced Khamenei's successor will become a, quote, unequivocal target for elimination, unquote. Israel has already bombed the Assembly of Experts building in Qom, where the decision was expected to be made. On Tuesday, President Trump said U.S. and Israeli strikes have already killed off many possible future leaders in Iran.
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead.
They're all dead.
We had some.
We had some in mind for.
Is
dead.
And now.
Another
group, they may be dead also.
Based on reports.
So
I heard.
Wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
We're not going to know anybody. We're going to have to just nominate the nearest kid.
This comes as CNN is reporting that.
Then we'll have to put in a CIA agent. That's right.
The CIA is now working to funnel arms to Iranian Kurdish militias in an attempt to spark an uprising in Iran. On Tuesday, Trump reportedly spoke to the president of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, which is considered a terrorist organization in Iran. Iranian forces have been launching drone strikes on Kurdish forces in northern Iraq. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Democratic senators are expressing alarm after receiving a classified briefing ahead of today's War Powers Resolution vote. This is Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal.
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground.
Senator Elizabeth Warren posted this message online after the briefing.
I just left a classified briefing on Iran, and here's what I can say. It is so much worse than you thought. You are right to be worried. Trump administration has no plan in Iran. This illegal war is based on lies, and it was launched without any imminent threat to our nation.
It's bullshit.
Donald Trump still hasn't given a single clear reason for this war, and he seems to have no plan for how to end it either.
President Trump's threatening to cut off trade with Spain after the Spanish government refused to allow the U.S. to use naval and air bases in southern Spain to strike Iran. Earlier today, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called the U.S.-Israeli war a disaster.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy.
In Pakistan, the U.S. has ordered some consular staff in Karachi and Lahore to leave Pakistan due to safety risks. Large anti-U.S. protests have erupted in recent days. Reuters is reporting U.S. Marines opened fire on Pakistani demonstrators who tried to storm the Karachi consulate. 10 people were killed during that attack on Sunday. Anti-U.S. protests are continuing in Pakistan, which is home to the world's second-largest Shia community after Iran.
We're here today to protest the American-Israeli strike on Iran. In an act of sheer hypocrisy, they bombed a girls' school, killing over 150 innocent children, while claiming to advocate for women's liberation. We are here to condemn this atrocity.
The Military Religious Freedom Foundation says it's been inundated with over 200 calls from members of the U.S. military regarding religious comments made by U.S. commanders about the war in Iran. One combat unit commander reportedly said the war is, quote, part of God's divine plan, and that, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth. Unquote. Last month, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited the controversial Christian nationalist pastor Doug Wilson to lead the Pentagon's prayer service. Wilson has opposed Muslims holding public office and does not believe women should be allowed to vote. The Pentagon has announced U.S. Special Forces are now in Ecuador to conduct joint military operations with Ecuadorian commandos to reportedly target suspected drug traffickers. The head of U.S. Southern Command and the top commander of U.S. Special Forces in Latin America met with Ecuador's right-wing president, Daniel Noboa, in Quito on Monday. Last year, Noboa proposed a constitutional change to allow the U.S. to operate a military base in Ecuador, but voters rejected the proposal. The deployment of U.S. troops to Ecuador marks a new front in the Trump administration's so-called Operation Southern Spear. Since September, the U.S. has blown up at least 44 boats in the region, killing at least 150 people. Without offering proof, the Trump administration's claimed all the targets were drug traffickers. The 2026 midterm campaign kicked off Tuesday with primaries in Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas. In Texas, Democratic state legislator and former seminarian James Tallarico is projected to have defeated Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in the closely watched Democratic Senate primary. Tallarico spoke to supporters in Austin.
This is a people-powered movement to take on this broken, corrupt political system. This is truly a campaign of, by, and for the people.
Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett decried voting disruptions in Dallas County, where hundreds of voters are reportedly turned away from polls.
I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails. The polls were supposed to stay open until 9, according to a court order. The Supreme Court, just a few minutes ago, just said, shut it down.
In the Republican Texas Senate primary, Senator John Cornyn and State Attorney General Ken Paxton are heading for a runoff on May 26. Their race is already the most expensive Senate primary in history. Meanwhile, Republican incumbent Congressmember Dan Crenshaw lost his primary to Texas State Representative Steve Toth. Another Republican incumbent congressman, Tony Gonzalez, has been forced into a runoff. Reports recently emerged that he had an affair with a staffer who later took her own life. In North Carolina, the matchup to replace retiring Republican Senator Tom Tillis is now set. Former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper will face off against Michael Whatley, a former Trump Republican National Committee chairman. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testified on Capitol Hill Tuesday, grilled about the killings by federal agents of Renee Good and Alex Pretty in Minneapolis, but she refused to apologize for linking them to domestic terrorism. She was questioned by Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois.
Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a
Kirsty
tragic
Noem.
loss of life and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue
Right,
to
folks.
deliver
You were wrong?
information.
Senator Amy Klobuchar questioned Noem about armed masked agents in St. Paul, Minnesota, battering down the door of a home of a U.S. citizen from Laos, even though the agents did not have a warrant.
Do you agree that it is unacceptable for your agents to ram into someone's door and drag someone out in their underwear and below zero temperatures when they have the wrong guy?
Our officers conduct operations and utilize the law processes that are given to them and the tools.
That you think that's wrong.
They needed to identify that individual, and
They couldn't identify him by looking at his identification. Instead, they had to drag him out,
Yeah.
throw him in a car, and drive him around for an hour.
In Arizona, a Haitian asylum seeker has died in ICE custody after being held for 4 months at the Florence Correctional Center. One local official said the man, Emmanuel Damas, had died after not getting timely medical care for an infected tooth. He's at least the 10th prisoner to die in ICE custody so far this year. And in Georgia, the father of an accused school shooter has been convicted of second-degree murder for giving his teenage son an AR-15-style rifle as a Christmas gift. Colin Gray's son, who was 14 at the time, is accused of using the gun to kill 2 students and 2 teachers at a high school in Winder, Georgia in 2024. Prosecutors accuse the father of ignoring his son's emotional problems, including his obsession with school shooters. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.
Kind of got to do something about that if your son's doing that shit.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our new.
Yesterday, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie tweeted, "Bombing a country on the other side of the globe won't make the Epstein files go away any more than the Dow going above 50,000 will." Today, the House Oversight Committee released video of the depositions of President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who had...
I'm sorry. What is happening?
...had a suggestion for the committee about Donald Trump.
I think that it would be in keeping with the scope of the investigation of this committee to set up a deposition with President Trump. I know he's been deposed many, many, many times. He's taken the Fifth Amendment many, many hundreds of times, so I'm not saying you're going to get a lot of information. But given what's in the files and given past and prior conduct, he would be on my witness list.
Hillary Clinton worked on the congressional committee investigating Republican President Richard Nixon for his criminality, which eventually forced Nixon to resign the presidency. And so she knows how these kind of investigative hearings are supposed to be conducted and how to assemble a witness list for such investigations. Bill Clinton might be the first witness who has testified to the committee about what Donald Trump told him about Jeffrey Epstein.
The president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein either. He just didn't. He just said we were friends And then we had a falling out over a land deal, property deal.
Could I ask very briefly, Mr. President,
Sure.
if you recall, what were the circumstances of that conversation, or at least let's start with when did the conversation occur?
It was on his golf course. And there were a couple of years there when Joe Torre, who had been the manager of the Yankees and was a friend, and had a tournament, a charitable golf tournament, called appropriately for this investigation, the Safe at Home Foundation. And it was designed to combat domestic violence, of which Joe Torre had been a victim as a child. And so I wanted to support it. And so Donald Trump gave him the golf course in New York to have a tournament on, and I played in it a couple of times. And the day I was there, he would typically, Donald Trump would come out and play a few holes with us. And he somehow knew I had flown in Jeffrey Epstein's aircraft, and he said, you know, we had some great times together over the years, but we fell out, all because of a real estate deal. And he said, I'm sorry it happened. That's all.
Today, MS Now's Alex Tabbitt found that voters in North Carolina who will be voting in primary elections tomorrow have not forgotten about the Epstein files.
What do you think President Trump is trying to distract from?
Right away.
The Epstein
Right away.
The Epstein files, I'm not quite sure, to be honest, but I think the Epstein files are absolutely a big part of it in all of what we are seeing.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. He is co-sponsor
Go,
with
Ro!
Congressman Thomas Massey of a resolution that would limit Donald Trump's ability to wage war in Iran without congressional approval. First of all, Congressman Khanna, let's go to the situation in Iran. What are you and Congressman Massey going to be able to accomplish in the House?
Lawrence, the vote is on Thursday. We're hoping to get a majority to say stop the war in Iran. Remember that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ran as the peace candidates. They said that Vice President Harris was going to get us into a war in Iran and cause World War III. Never in the modern history of this country has someone lied as blatantly and won office on such a false pretense. The American people don't want people dying for a war in the Middle East. And they don't want our billions of dollars going on bombs there instead of housing here, jobs here, childcare here. I believe we're going to have close to a unified Democratic caucus, and we have the chance of getting a few Republican votes.
So Donald Trump's given a bunch of reasons about why he did this. He didn't mention Jeffrey Epstein as one of the reasons why he has done this. But clearly, that's one of his hopes, is that he will divert our attention from this. Congressman Massey has promised that will not work.
It will not work, and he realizes that with President Clinton testifying, the pressure is mounting for him to testify. That's why he didn't want the Clintons to testify. And by the way, Secretary Clinton was so restrained. I mean, she should never have been called. She never met Jeffrey Epstein. You know who did meet Epstein and was all over the files? Donald Trump. And so,
and her husband did,
and Melania Trump. And both of them need to be called to be asked basic questions. Why is it that he had a falling out? Because President Clinton's account of why Donald Trump had a falling out with Jeffrey Epstein is very different than the account that Donald Trump has been giving. Why are those files missing of the woman who accused him of rape when she was a minor? Again, an accusation, but why is it that 3 of those witness interviews are missing? And with the First Lady, we'll be respectful, but she has to answer some basic questions. Because unlike First Lady Clinton, Secretary Clinton, she actually knew Epstein. What was her relationship? Did she know about Epstein's abuse?
Well, Donald Trump says, at least he told the police chief in Florida that
my wife knew nothing.
When he discovered that they were
drag her
investigating
around.
Epstein, Donald Trump then says everyone knew. Well, everyone would include his wife, Melania Trump.
It would include his wife, and it would include his cabinet member, Howard Lutnick, who years afterwards is out there doing business. But I think that it's very appropriate to ask First Lady Trump, when did she know? Why did she continue to have an
How many times
engagement
were you
with
on the
him?
island?
Did she know if there were other young girls who were being abused?
Did you ever see 12-year-old
And
girls
what was
around?
the relationship between her and President Trump and Epstein? I mean, we need to know these details, just as a matter of fact.
Thank you,
I
Ro.
don't remember any other testimony where a witness has told the committee that we know about a conversation with Donald Trump about Jeffrey Epstein. Was Bill Clinton's testimony on that golf course point the first testimony like that?
Yes, to my knowledge, that was the first point. And his testimony contradicts what Donald Trump was saying. And by the way, President Clinton wasn't trying to get Donald Trump in trouble. He said, I don't know if he's done anything wrong, but this is what he told me. Well, it turns out that's not what he's telling the American people.
Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Got a little bit of breaking news out of Texas as we continue to watch the Democratic U.S. Senate primary there. As you see, this is what we've got right now. 45% of the vote in. James Tallarico leading Jasmine Crockett right now, 53 to roughly 46%. But again, less than half the vote in. And one of the things we've been watching closely all night since we first sat down at this desk is the question of Dallas County. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett represents a district in Dallas. And Dallas County has had problems with the administration of their election today. We've been explaining that over the course of the night. I'm going to go right now to Evan Smith, who's the host of Overheard with Evan Smith on Austin PBS.
Oh, God, he beat her by a
veteran
lot.
observer of Texas politics. He's got 30 years experience doing that. And Evan, I'd like you to explain to us again what had happened
It's called
today
for Tallarico,
in Dallas
by the
County,
way.
why things have been
This is
chaotic
old
there.
news.
And now
Let's get
this
out of
new
here
reporting about a judge's order about the extension of voting there.
Right. So as we talked about earlier, Rachel, the Republican
Iran continues to fire drones and missiles toward American assets and allies in the Middle East. A spokesperson for Saudi Arabia Defense Ministry said yesterday that the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was struck by drones, causing a fire and damage to the building. This as the United States continued to carry out strikes against targets in Iran yesterday.
Well.
Mass funerals were held for over 160 children whom Iran claims were killed in a strike on a girls' school during the opening phase of the war. The U.S. says it would not deliberately target a school, and an investigation is underway.
Sure.
Exchanges of fire between Israel and Iranian-backed
Yeah,
Hezbollah
right.
in Lebanon continued as well. Meanwhile, the U.S. military has announced that a sixth service member has been killed in action. Speaking at a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House yesterday, President Trump said that plans for Iran were ahead of schedule, but suggested that the war could last a month or longer.
Rio, 7 a.m. Pacific time.
We have the strongest and most powerful by far military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
Yeah, right.
You know, David Ignatius, you and I had talked before about the dangers of looking at this as another Venezuela. This is not another Venezuela.
Yeah, no
this
shit.
is a regime that's been in power since 1979. They have infrastructure to fight this for quite some time, and their leaders are saying, we're not going to negotiate with you. They're actually, the reports that I'm hearing, and I'd love to get your reports, they're saying this is a war of endurance. They right now, they're sending cheap drones and trying to terrorize and exhaust American allies across the region with these constant attacks, and they're saving their missiles for later. And what you have right now, the Saudis getting hit, UAE getting hit, allies across the region getting hit. This war now expanding into Lebanon. The idea of a
Not
quick,
my
as you said
Lebanese
on
brothers
Saturday,
and sisters.
Viking-like
No.
strike that the Trump administration was hoping to have here, not happening. And the justification moves, we're going to play Marco Rubio's very strange justification. We had to attack because Israel was going to attack. And then word that J.D. Vance was the one pushing the president to have a far bigger, far more expansive attack into Iran. A lot of cross currents in this story. What is your latest reporting on where this war is and how long this war may last?
So, Joe, this is a longer, wider war than I think anybody expected. In part because the Iranians are not suing for peace.
I expected it.
They don't want to talk. The Viking strategy, if that's right, is confounded by...
Why would you want to talk at this point? You literally attacked them while you were having peace talks. Why would the person being attacked go, oh yeah, we're going to just roll over now. Fuck you. What?
Pretty stiff resistance and the need to continue the battle. This morning, I received a message from the UAE just describing the situation there. This is a global hub that basically has been shut down. Air traffic in and out has been almost impossible at a time when people are being urged, in some cases ordered to leave. So there's a lot of confusion.
How does that work?
I think across the Gulf, as people reckon with the fact that this could go on for a month. I think the economic impacts of the war are becoming clearer. The Strait of Hormuz has been effectively shut down, so transit of oil out is going to be difficult. Oil facilities in Qatar and Saudi Arabia have been hit. So in all these ways, the length and cost of the war is clearer today than it was 24 hours ago. Also, Joe, as you said, I hear people talking about the somewhat confusing and occasionally contradictory explanations of the war by members of the administration. The Rubio comment that you referenced is the most striking, effectively saying
stunning.
The imminent reason we had to go to war was because Israel was about to strike Iran.
Well, and David, let's count these up right now. We have Marco Rubio saying we had to attack because Israel was going to attack regardless.
Yep.
We've heard they were, a week away or whatever preposterous date was given to it from having nuclear weapons. We've heard, they were about to attack us. All of these excuses have fallen by the wayside. It appears they haven't settled on a justification for this. And the latest is, we had to do it because Israel was going to do it. But I want you to talk about how Iran here has, as you predicted, was not going to lay down like Venezuela. Everything they're doing, like you're talking about cutting off oil in the Straits of Hormuz, why are they doing that? Because they believe that will give them economic leverage over Donald Trump. Everything they're doing is calculated. I guess they've been planning for this attack probably since 1979.
No shit.
And Iran, if you can explain the geography of the country, it is a mountainous, spread out, extraordarily difficult
twice
place
the
to go
size
into.
of Iraq.
So when Pete Hegseth or other people are talking about the possibility of boots on the ground,
good luck.
They don't know what they're talking about.
So the idea of invading Iran continues to me to seem just hard to imagine. No U.S. commander in his right mind would try to do that.
Nope.
I can imagine special forces operations in various parts. But this is going to be a difficult campaign. We have to remember that the people in charge in Iran see themselves as revolutionaries.
Good.
And they see the United States, have seen since 1979, as their great adversary. And the war that
top viewers, what's a non-top viewer?
For 47 years is finally
we got top
here,
viewers that it's like
real.
Okay,
and Iran is fighting back as hard as you'd
they don't top my viewers, bitch.
One concern that I have is the evidence that it's spreading to other Shia areas. The number of deaths of Shias in India and Pakistan who were rioting after the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei was disturbing, and I know people in various governments are looking at that with concern. But I think the simple point is you start out with wars thinking you have a straightforward objective. Presidents hope wars will be easy. Wars never are.
No.
And this one isn't.
This is one of the hardest ones ever.
Changing the nature of this regime, which has caused such havoc and destruction in the Middle East, I think remains a goal that sensible people should think about. The question is at what cost and with what justification from U.S. officials. And those two are still murky.
Global gas prices have soared this week amid fears of a lengthy disruption to the world's most critical choke point for oil shipments, which have effectively stalled as the threat of attacks from Iran has deterred vessels from passing through the Strait of Hormuz. For more on the war's impact on global energy supplies, let's bring in former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner.
Steve, the president talked about keeping the straits open. I'm curious, how important is that to the oil flow across the world?
It's critically important, Joe. So let's just take a look at a map to orient people. First, here's a map of the Middle East. Here's the Strait of Hormuz right here. It is about 22 miles wide, but there are only two shipping lanes of about 2 miles wide. You can see Iran is right here, so they can obviously control the straits if they want to. Here, all the big oil-producing countries in the region, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates. And so these straits are effectively closed at the moment because it's too dangerous and because insurance companies won't insure tankers going through there. Trump has talked about using the Navy to open it up. That's something that they actually did back in the 1980s. Whether this will happen again remains to be seen. But for right now, oil is not coming out of here. There are pipelines out of there. There's one across here. There's one over here that were basically built to reduce the reliance on the Strait of Hormuz, but they can't carry nearly enough oil, so it's piling up in here. How important is it? Really important. Saudi Arabia, as you know, is a huge oil producer. Virtually all their oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz, except for this piece that goes across the pipeline. Iraq, UAE, Iran, which sells its oil to China at the moment because we've embargoed it, Kuwait, and Qatar all go through there. It's a total of about 20% of the world's oil, so it is a huge amount.
And because of that, it's going to have an impact on oil prices, gas prices
20%.
down. So we look at your second chart. Just looking this morning, $78.50 a barrel for Brent crude right now. It had been as high as 81. What is the impact of that on what people pay at the pump?
It's already having an impact on what people pay at the pump. So you can see here, oil prices were actually rising a bit already. For a variety of reasons, including the tensions in the Middle East that scared the markets. But then, of course, you had this big jump, as you just articulated, Willie, and that has already turned into higher gas prices. You can see this line is gas, this reddish color line. The blue line is crude oil, and you can see that gas has already gone from $2.98 to $3.11 just in the last 4 days across the country. So that's the bad news. The good news for us is that we're not going to see gas lines again like in 1973, because we have gone from being a huge importer of oil, net importer of oil, to actually being a net exporter of oil. We import some, we export some, but on balance, we export more than we import. So supply is not our problem. But because oil is a worldwide commodity, it trades at a worldwide price, we do feel the impact on prices, but we shouldn't feel the impact on supply.
All right, so let's move to your third chart, which gets at inflation. Obviously something that's been a persistent problem, but this obviously not helping with that either.
Right. And remember, it's also not just gasoline that goes up in price. It's everything else that comes from petroleum, which includes jet fuel, home heating oil, things that go into petrochemicals that are made from petroleum. So there could be a significant inflationary impact. This is what the market expects inflation to be. And you can see, again, it was already moving up. The economy was a bit stronger. Oil prices were moving up. Then it looked like it was easing off, and now it's jumped again up here. It's gone up about 0.15 Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's going in the wrong direction. But the bigger impact of that, or a big impact of that, is on expectations for interest rates. Because the Fed has a 2% inflation target, when it goes up like that, people expect interest rates to remain higher for longer. So just in the last few days since the attack, interest rates have moved up as you can see here, from the yellow to the red. And so as you also see, the stock market has been wobbly. Why has the stock market been wobbly? Partly, obviously, because of all this international uncertainty, potential for a wider war, et cetera, but also because higher interest rates are the enemy of stock prices, because they provide other places for people to put their money besides stocks, which then puts pressure on stocks. So all of this is part of why the stock market has been so wobbly in the past few days. And of course, higher inflation and remaining so far above the Fed's inflation target is also worrisome for economic policy.
Steve, Wall Street clearly does not like unpredictability or uncertainty. No one does. But on the global stage, there's no way of telling how long we will be actively involved on a daily basis in a war in Iran. What happens if this war lengthens out in terms of the United States' presence and participation in that war? What happens to those charts behind you right now?
A lot of bad things, Mike, a lot of bad things. The oil prices could spike some more. As I said, I don't think it affects our supply, but it affects the prices people pay at the pump and for their home heating oil and even for their natural gas, because a lot of natural gas also passes through the Straits of Hormuz. And so then you get more inflation, you get the potential for higher interest rates, you get the uncertainty and the fear of what could happen. And yeah, all that is really bad for the stock market. The stock market's reaction so far has actually been quite muted. It was down about 1% yesterday. It looks like it'll open about flat today. That's a pretty benign reaction given everything that could have happened. But the potential for a much bigger stock market disruption is certainly right there if this war were to widen out, or if something unexpectedly bad were to happen to us, to our troops, to the whole Middle Eastern situation.
And these things do happen in war, unplanned events. Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner with his charts again this morning. Steve, thanks so much as always. Still ahead on Morning Joe, top Pentagon officials expected to hold
from Maryland, the ranking member, for his opening comments.
Well, thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Secretary Noem. We're glad to meet you, even though it's been 13 months since you took office and more than 5 weeks since 2 American citizens were shot dead in Minneapolis. Renee Good was a 37-year-old poet, about 20 years younger than you are now, and like you, both a devout Christian and the mother of 3. She was on her way home from school drop-off when she encountered an ICE operation, and one of your agents shot her dead, shot her 3 times. She bled out in the driver's seat of her car after your agents refused to let a doctor or EMTs approach her. You expressed no sympathy for her family and no regret for her killing by an ICE agent. You ran a smear campaign against Renee Good. You called her a domestic terrorist. Alex Preddy was also 37 and, like you, a federal worker. He was an ICU nurse at a VA hospital, outstanding in his job, providing comfort to many of our vets.
Good job,
in their
boys and
final
girls,
hours.
with the 4Ks.
He was standing on a street corner filming your agents as they roughed up peaceful protesters. Americans have a First Amendment right to record government agents in public places, as 8 different federal circuit courts have unanimously found. But your agents pepper sprayed Alex Preddy for helping a woman that they had pushed to the ground. Then they threw him to the ground. They beat him up. They stripped him of a lawful firearm he had never touched. And then, after confiscating it, they shot him dead with 10 bullets. Before his body was even cold, you launched a smear campaign against him, using the same language, asserting without evidence that Alex Preddy had committed a, quote, act of domestic terrorism and intended to kill law enforcement.
Yep.
This disturbing video tells the true
This is
facts.
today.
You tried to cover up with propaganda, and we can play it only because other brave Americans used their phones to capture the actual reality of this horror.
Brave Americans.
Deadly ICE-involved shooting out of Minneapolis. The Minneapolis police chief says a woman was killed after being shot in the head by an ICE agent.
During a struggle, said the citizen.
Federal law, that's the facts. Operation of federal law. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
What?
Madam Secretary, you've provided no evidence to back up your defamatory lie against either of these American citizens. There have been 3 homicides in Minneapolis in 2026. Your agents committed 2 of them. Rather than work with state and local authorities to solve these homicides, you barred Minnesota's investigators from the crime scenes. You're denying them access to all the evidence that you have about the deaths of their citizens. It smells like a cover-up, and it makes me wonder who the real domestic terrorists are. But you didn't just lie about Renee Good and Alex Preddy. In dozens of cases, federal judges have found that your officials lied to them in court. A Reagan-appointed judge rejected the testimony of your acting ICE director as, quote, disingenuous, squalid, and dishonorable. Another judge called the affidavit of a top ICE official, quote, the sorriest statement I've ever seen, adding she was shocked when she saw it, and that if you were asking to get a warrant issued on this, I'd throw you out of my chambers. Here are a few more examples of the many scores we found in the case books. Yesterday, you insisted under oath to the Senate that you follow court orders, but that's not true either. Just last month, your lawyers were forced to admit that you had violated immigration court orders more than 50 times in 10 weeks. And that was just in New Jersey, one of 94 judicial districts in America. In Minnesota, Judge Patrick Schultz, a George W. Bush appointee, concluded, quote, that ICE has likely violated more court orders in January of 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. And while you make a daily mockery of our courts and our Constitution, you're treating the billions of dollars our colleagues showered on your department like a personal slush fund. You budgeted an astonishing $220 million for media consultant contracts so you can star in self-promoting photo shoots and lavish ad campaigns like this one of you riding horseback at Mount Rushmore, which was shot during last year's government shutdown. You're living rent-free in the official waterfront residence reserved for the commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard. You spent $172 million to buy not 1, but 2 luxury jets for your travel, and now you're using taxpayer funds to lease a 3rd jet, a $70 million luxury 737 MAX with a queen-size bedroom in the back, a deluxe serving bar, and 4 flat-screen TVs. A big, beautiful jet paid for by the big, beautiful bill. Yesterday, under questioning the Senate, you said you plan to refurbish this jet to make it into this kind of airplane, which is what's actually being used for deportations in order to save the taxpayers' money. In other words, you're saying that's actually a deportation plane, but wouldn't it have been cheaper just to buy a deportation plane in the first place? It's like buying a Rolls Royce to turn into a Metro bus. I was almost prepared to buy that story of how the jet was both for executive travel and mass deportation. And then I heard about an airborne episode of entitlement, arrogance, and contempt that I could hardly believe. Apparently, when your special blanket, your blankie, was left on one of the government jets and not transported over to the new one, your special government employee, Corey Lewandowski, chivalrously stepped forward to fire the pilot midair, a 2003 Coast Guard Academy graduate and distinguished U.S. Coast Guard commander in Air Station, Washington, D.C. But then he had to be rehired immediately because there was no one else who could fly the 2 of you on the rest of the journey back home. Secretary Noem, you're flying high now, maybe even a little bit too close to the sun. But with all these free planes and houses and pilots, you've traveled a long distance from your actual job and the things you should be doing as head of Homeland Security. Your agency is charged with protecting the homeland. It includes FEMA, TSA, the Secret Service, the Coast Guard, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, as well as ICE and CBP. Yet you've hollowed out the national security mission.
Yep.
You redeployed thousands of people responsible for tracking terror financing and fighting cyber threats to go work on your mass immigration roundup. You reassigned to the roundup agents working
an indictment,
a
dude.
key national security probe into Iran's terror financing, paralyzing that investigation. And to run what's left of Homeland Security's ruined Terrorism Prevention Office, you actually installed a 22-year-old intern whose chief listed qualification for the job was that he had participated in a model UN club his junior year of college. Through FEMA, you're supposed to provide disaster relief to our communities. Yet last summer, as floods devastated central Texas and killed 135 people, including 25 girls and 2 counselors at a Christian summer camp, you withheld crucial support, including search and rescue teams, for 72 hours. Why? Those were 3 crucial days during which people drowned and died, waiting for bureaucratic approval. You promised to use ICE and CBP to expel the worst of the worst, undocumented immigrants guilty of committing violent crimes, like the people responsible for murdering the children of these angel families, these angel moms and dads who've joined us today. Instead, your masked agents have been indiscriminately rounding up any and all immigrants and citizens who your agents think look like they might be immigrants. They've arrested kindergartners, daycare teachers, and parents dropping off kids at school. They drag grandparents out of their homes in their underwear in sub-zero temperatures and rip children out of their beds in the middle of the night, or use them as bait to arrest their parents. Just last month, your agents picked up Nurul Shah Alam, a severely disabled and nearly blind Rohingya refugee, lawfully in America, who didn't speak English. You claimed your agents dropped him at a safe, warm location. Again, not the truth. They dropped him off miles from his home in the dark at a closed coffee shop in sub-freezing temperatures. And now, because of this cruelty, this man too is dead. You have 250,000 employees and a budget larger than that of 150 countries. You command over 80,000 sworn law enforcement officers, more than the number of police officers in New York, Chicago, LA, Houston, DC, Las Vegas, and Dallas combined. On top of that, our colleagues have handed ICE an additional $75 billion by slashing funds for Medicaid, children's health insurance, and rural hospitals. Secretary Noem, your job is to protect the homeland, but the most precious possession that we've got in our homeland is our freedom and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that protect it. You seem to have forgotten what our most precious possession is. The billions of dollars showered on your department have paid for violence and chaos in the American heartland and a sweeping assault on the basic rights of the American people. But the heroic citizens of Minneapolis have shown America how to fight back against this reign of terror and win with the truth, with solidarity, with mutual self-help, with creative joy and humor and music, with mass nonviolent assembly and protest, and with irrepressible love of children and kindness towards animals and other living things. You've turned our government against our people, and you've turned our people against our government. But the people are winning today, although we know we must continue to wake up every day, like the people of Minneapolis, and go out and fight for constitutional freedom. We are clearly in the fight of our...
Yep, that's what they want.
Warning sirens, and you can hear explosions in the background. That is Israel, as their defense system is stopping so much of the incoming. Much of the Middle East is on high alert. This is day 4 of Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion, which is the Israeli part of what you see now. Iran and its terror proxies are escalating retaliatory attacks, striking Israel and now most of the Gulf nations.
No
if
shit.
You can believe that. Now, when we first saw this,
and
we
they
thought,
got more.
Is that on purpose? Didn't really know what to make of it. Day 4, Iran is unleashing on their neighbors at this point. U.S. embassies and bases are also under fire. I'm Harris
Yes.
Faulkner. You are in the
What
Faulkner
did you
Focus.
expect?
Israel is moving fast to destroy Tehran's missile capabilities. The Israeli Defense Force is also launching simultaneous strikes in Tehran and Lebanon. In Beirut, the conflict is rapidly expanding now, and Iran is destroying any goodwill it may have had in that region. Gulf states are seeing hundreds of Iranian rockets, missiles, and drones fired by Iran. President Trump posted just this morning, Iran's air defense, Air Force, Navy, and leadership gone. They want to talk. I said too late. The U.S. embassies in the region are also on high alert, as they have been, but it's a little bit of a difference now after today's drone strikes in the Riyadh embassy.
Said.
Nobody was in it. It had been evacuated, but still a lot of damage. And so we have our eye on all of the embassies in that region, our diplomats and spokespeople where they normally would be. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu joined Brett Baer.
And Iran, this terror regime in Iran is the weakest point that it's been here since it hijacked Iran from the brave Iranian people 47 years ago. So this is going to be a quick and decisive action, and we're going to create the conditions, first for the Iranian people to get control of their destiny, to form their own democratically elected government. If we go through what we plan to do, I think it will create conditions for peace. This is not an endless war.
We are covering the breaking news from the Middle East and here at home. General
we bomb
Charles
kids and
Wall
children.
coming
It's
up
going to
in
stop the
focus.
war. Trust me.
Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer
Where have we
Griffin
heard that before,
also
Chad?
standing by. First, though, I want to go to Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yinks in Tel Aviv. Trey.
Harris, good morning. We start with some major updates from the region. Iran's Supreme Council was meeting earlier today just south of the capital of Tehran when the Israelis struck the building, killing everyone inside, according to initial reports. They were meeting to determine who the next supreme leader of the country would be. And when they were counting the votes, the Israelis say that's when they struck. All of this coming as the Iranians are still launching new ballistic missile barrages into central and northern Israel. Earlier today, one of those missiles was a
That's why Trump said they're all dead.
It broke up in the air over Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv, and those pieces of shrapnel rained down below. This video here is from a scene that we just returned from in a religious community called Bnei Brak. First responders say at least 7 people were wounded. When we arrived at the scene, there were families and children everywhere. The Israeli people celebrating the Jewish holiday of Purim. Looking to Israel's northern border, the war has erupted between Iran's largest proxy, Hezbollah, and Israel. The Israelis are striking back deep into the heart of Beirut, targeting the Hezbollah stronghold of the Dakhya neighborhood. Israel says they are bracing for more days of war ahead in the north, and overnight they moved ground forces into southern Lebanon to build up a defensive posture there.
Harris? Yeah, right.
Trey Yinks, thank you very much for getting us started. Now this.
This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats.
Eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this second sinister regime.
President Trump making the case to the people, laying out the need to launch Operation Epic Fury. When he did, his choice and why and when. Israel launching strikes after strike now, directly into Tehran and Beirut. A crushing Israeli air campaign targeting Hezbollah military assets in Lebanon, leaving behind smoldering rubble. And a map shows Israeli forces are extending their retaliatory strikes beyond Beirut, stretching into several Lebanese cities. Saudi Arabia could be on the brink of joining the regional conflict as well. A source telling Fox News that country is considering Air Force strikes on Iran targets, and in response to unprecedented missile and drone attacks from Iran. Brand new video from U.S. Central Command shows the equipment engaged in the Middle East mission. High-powered jets adding to the largest regional concentration of American military firepower in a generation. Those assets being used to take out Iranian mobile missile launchers. CENTCOM posted this video on X with the caption referring to the U.S. effort as surgical, overwhelming, and unapologetic in destroying Tehran's offensive missiles. Here's Secretary of State Rubio.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. The hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now.
House Speaker Mike Johnson also defending U.S. coordination with Israel and Iran.
Why in the world they waited if they had exquisite intelligence,
right away.
knowing that that
Also,
would
Jim,
happen, that we would suffer such staggering losses? Why did they not act to prevent it? So I am convinced that they did the right thing.
The regional unrest also is affecting the world's most vital oil export route. Iran's military has threatened to set on fire any vessel passing through the Strait of Hormuz, with a senior advisor in the IRGC saying the waterway is now closed. However, CENTCOM has confirmed to Fox News the Strait of Hormuz remains open, and it's released this video showing a U.S. attack on an Iranian ship. A message posted with the video says 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. Here's Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg.
80% of the oil comes through the Straits of Hormuz. So by taking out their Navy, which was really good, put them at the bottom of the sea, you kind of freed up one option. Now that means they should have pretty good freedom of maneuver for the oil routes. It was a good move by the president. It was a great move by War and also by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, building up a systematic takedown of the Iranian forces.
And the chief national security correspondent, Jennifer Griffin, joins
Bro
me
needs
now.
to
I don't know if
retire,
you're starting
fuck's
here,
sake.
but from what General Kellogg just said, I think it's up to 10 naval ships that our U.S. military has, as the president says, put at the bottom of the sea. Jennifer.
Even 11, Harris.
11
it's
now.
up to 11, and that's the total number of large Navy vessels that the Iran's Navy has. Separately, Harris, well-placed military and diplomatic sources in the region tell me Saudi Arabia is very close to allowing its Air Force to strike targets inside Iran after facing unprecedented missile and drone attacks on its civilians, including incoming missiles today targeting Daman, its 5th largest city. Quote, the next 24 hours is going to be intense, I'm told. A line has been crossed, a well-placed official in the Gulf tells me. What's truly extraordinary, Harris, about this development is that it would not have been possible if Israel had not been brought in under U.S. Central Command at the end of the first Trump administration. Carrying out airstrikes takes tremendous deconfliction and coordination. CENTCOM used to be attached, Israel used to be attached to the European Command due to sensitivities with the Arab states that did not recognize Israel. That changed with the Abraham Accords. No U.S. personnel were killed or injured when the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, was struck last night by at least 2 Iranian Shahed drones. The embassy was largely empty at the time. There is a division of labor right now in terms of targeting. Israel is targeting Iranian leadership, like that meeting that Trey mentioned of top religious scholars in Qom earlier today, where Iran's remaining top religious leaders were meeting to decide the successor to the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. The U.S., for its part, is focusing on Iran's vast ballistic missile stockpiles and launchers and, of course, sinking the Russian Navy. The president said the U.S. has sunk all 11 of Iran's large naval vessels.
Really?
The Iranian president has decentralized decision-making to regional governors today. These satellite images from Vantor Tech and analysis from David Albright from the Institute of Science show recent airstrikes targeting the access points to the underground nuclear facility at Natanz, the enrichment plant there. These buildings had been struck last summer, but they were not destroyed completely, and Iran had started to essentially rebuild there. At Bushehr, which is a nuclear power plant, the Russians say that they have told the 600-plus Russian engineers working there to shut down the facility. We have no confirmation of that, but Bushehr nuclear reactor is certainly something to watch. And lastly, Harris, we understand that the Gulf states are feeling that they're running low on interceptor missiles, so they are asking CENTCOM to send interceptor missiles like for the Patriot and THAAD missile batteries. Those, of course, are in somewhat short supply given how much they're needed in Europe and in Ukraine right now. But I am told that that help will be forthcoming. Lastly, the president has added a 4th goal to this operation, suggesting that the U.S. would also target Iran's proxies in the region. Harris?
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. In focus now, retired U.S. Air Force General Charles Wald, a former deputy commander of U.S. European Command. Sir, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you in focus today. Let's start with where our reporter, and I don't know if you could hear Jennifer Griffin there, but she said that now some of our allies in the region have asked for interceptor missiles because they may be running low or running out of them to take some of the incoming. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that's true. I think everybody needs more interceptor missiles. We did a report after the June attacks last year on the nuclear facilities in Iran by the U.S. and Israel. And one of the things we recommended is that, number one, that we increase the number of interceptors and the integrated air defense systems in the region amongst the U.S., Israel, and the GCC allies. And number two is that we continue to address the ballistic missile development and capability in Iran. And so it's easier to take out the ballistic missiles than to intercept them, although we've got a great capability technologically in the region with our allies to do that. But yes, we need more interceptors. We'll need them in the future. And we ought to continue to take out their ballistic missile capability in Iran.
If we, from our own CENTCOM, start to give away some of our interceptors, do you have any concerns that we will ourselves not have enough? Like, what is our stockpile like?
Well, I think it's a shared stockpile. So when I was the commander of the U.S. Air Forces in the central region where CENTCOM is now, we had a meeting with the air chiefs from all the GCC countries and talked about collaboration, coordination, and integration of all our systems. That's still ongoing, but I think it could have been accelerated. But I think our systems in another country, coordinated with our commander, Brad Cooper, who's the CENTCOM commander, and his forces out at Al Udeid, is the best way to do it because of the geographical location and dispersion of the forces. So I see us sending missiles to our allies or their nations, let's say, with our coordination to be a good thing for everybody.
General Wald, in just a few minutes, we were told to expect the president to host the Chancellor of Germany. And when he meets with Chancellor Friedrich Merz, we know that Germany, along with France and the UK now, have put out this joint statement that, at least on the defensive end, to protect their own citizens, they will engage in what's happening with Iran. They're not going to go on the offensive with us, but that was what that statement said. But also, the UK now has opened up its airspace, and British pilots are in the skies, as the UK Prime Minister Starmer says, in defense of its own people. Talk to me, because you know that part of the world so much. What do we actually need from our allies at this time, and what should they be giving?
Well, I think what you just outlined with the collaboration from Germany, France, and Britain is a huge step in the right direction for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's an increase of the force. Two, it's a collaboration of an alliance. But I think more importantly, and we talked about it a minute ago, is they have weapons themselves that they can put into the fight. Precision targeting weapons for defense and other types of weapons. So I think you see the world understanding this is time for the Iranian regime to go away.
In game in all of this, the president has said he's promised no forever war. Your last quick thought on that, because we've seen so many of them that seemed like they would go on forever.
Well, I think the president's right. I mean, I think all of us don't want any forever wars. I think what we need to do is defeat the capability of the regime, the military, particularly the IRGC and the Bajis and other military capabilities in Iran, to be defanged and to quit threatening their regional, the people in the GCC and the other countries and our allies. So I see the end game of diminishing Iran's capability to export terrorism, for one thing. That's tough, but also to export conventional capability. And the more we can defeat and decline their capability to have a conventional capability is best for everybody.
General Wald, you sound optimistic. You have led so many in the name of this country. I appreciate your time and your expertise, sir. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox 1.
And the Democrats and media are ramping up their resistance to Trump's attacks on Iran. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries voicing their pessimism and already forecasting failure. Watch.
The American people want us to focus on making their life better, making their life more affordable, not getting involved in another endless war in the Middle East that is going to end in failure.
Wars without clear objectives do not remain small. They get bigger, bloodier, longer, and more expensive. This is not a necessary war, it's a war of choice.
And some in the media are letting their opposition be known, even framing it as an issue for the Democrats to run on in the midterms.
If this does extend 3, 4, 6 weeks, and the American death toll really accelerates, this is not just a defining moment for this president, but a real problem for his party in a midterm election year.
We don't know why Donald Trump just started this war in Iran. Trump did it basically as a favor.
Can President Trump really take out every dictator on his own without consulting Congress or getting them to vote?
You know, there's something fishy about why he did it to me. It's a distraction, like a wag the dog situation.
Tyrus, can we start with Hakeem Jeffries saying, while we have troops actively working, he says it is going to be a failure. That is
shocking. And there's a guy that I've been on record a few times saying that he was going to be a legitimate threat in the Democratic Party in terms of like presidential, and then he goes and drops something like that. I don't know when we got to the point where when they're saying American people, it's the American people who are going over there. It's our troops that are
he
going
got
those
spicy.
are about as
What
American
happened?
as it gets. And to not show support, you don't have
loose.
to agree, but just to use key words like fail, or when did everyone become these predictors? It's always mass chaos. It's always, oh, the death toll is going to do this and do that. Well, at the moment, it looks.
Hello? Previous wars have proved it, dumbass.
Looks like the United States is kicking ass and taking names, literally.
Are we?
They can't even have a Sunday brunch tea anymore to discuss because everything they do, America is one step ahead of them. Where is the support? There is a moment, I think, at least give them the week before you start.
Is he filling in for Gutfeld?
Your criticism from your, something seems fishy to me. Wow, what a journalistic take that was. It was a wag the dog. These are American lives. I don't think, and the president, again, his resume, forget what you think of him. His resume shows that he is not in the business of putting men and women who serve this country in the line of fire. He avoids it like the plague. And this situation, it is what it is. He's reluctant, but he knows it's the right thing to do, and I'm trusting the process. But when you have these leaders, or they're not leaders, they're sound bites, and instead of being a part of the solution, the other argument would be with all the stuff they're talking about, because now they're going to say the economy's high because of the war. Where are your ideas and solutions? Give us one. Come to the table with one. Where's your magic health care? Give us something, because I'm pretty sure if it's good enough, he'd sign it. He's literally said 1 million times, bring it to my office. So where are your solutions? Always telling us how it's going to end. It's like that one friend who never pays for dinner, always complains.
What are you
about the
talking
restaurant.
about? Your president doesn't have a fucking solution at all.
Jesse, whenever we deal with the War Powers Act, we have to go back and remind everyone that Congress hasn't declared war since 1942.
Mm-hmm.
So the claim that Congress wanted Trump to come to them and say, let us know everything and let us vote on it before you take any action. Like, the Congress can't even fund the TSA and FEMA.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't do that with a surprise attack.
What?
This isn't an Iraq war where you go to the UN and then you have this buildup for a year and then you ask permission from the Democrats and everybody votes. This was a window, and we took a shot, and we briefed the Gang of Eight before, and we did it afterwards. I don't know why people are surprised. Rachel Maddow doesn't know why we're at war. There's been an armada building in the Gulf for a month. Hannity, at 9 o'clock, opposite of her, has been covering it every night while she's been covering Epstein, and she doesn't know why. Call a source. Call someone in the deep state. They'll explain it to you. We've been at war with these people since 1979. Can I talk about Hakeem
Hence,
for a second?
no new wars. See, that's how he gets
the
out.
U.S. military is going to fail. Yep. That's what the Ayatollah said. And he's dead. You cannot have men and women serving, risking their lives overseas on, day 4 of an ongoing military operation, and the lead Democrat in the House says you're going to lose? Yep. I mean, Everybody overseas watching now knows Hakeem Jeffries does not have their back. And he's asking, well, where does he get the money for this war? Okay, it was in the $900 billion Pentagon budget that he voted for. I think he's losing it.
The other thing is that Hakeem Jeffries, they talk about, in terms of the cost of the bombing, it's like, well, yes, there's the bill actually passed. But they were the ones also the day after Trump's inauguration saying that he hadn't done enough to bring down the price of eggs. So there's that. I know we don't have a ton of time. Jessica, let me go to you and talk about the Democrats. Like John Fetterman today on Newsroom said, but they wanted Iran's leadership to fail. They wanted them to get rid of them, but they just wanted it done in their way. But they had not done it in the past 2 times when they had the presidency.
Yeah, no one disputes that Iran was a massive threat. We've talked about no tears shed for the Ayatollah or the other, 45 some odd people are with him day one and the 80 something that died today. I think it's more about the questions of how long is this going to go on? What does it mean? What does success look like? How many American lives are going to be lost? And tying it back to the fact that Donald Trump was someone who ran on successfully multiple times as the quote unquote peace president and no troops on the ground. I do think calling it an illegal war and going down that route is pretty fruitless and silly. I mean, Secretary Rubio said yesterday, we followed all the protocols. I'm looking right now at the War Powers Resolution notification that they submitted to Congress on time on February 28th before the strikes happened. They have been doing it, quote unquote, by the book up until this point, and they will have the vote on it. And there will be some Republicans who will vote against it. Todd Young is signaling that that may happen. But it is not just Democrats that are concerned about this. I already mentioned Todd Young, the Thomas Masseys of the world, the Rand Pauls of the world. And I think there's a difference between the kind of surgical strikes that we saw with Operation Midnight Hammer or in Venezuela and what this looks like even just a few days in, and our close ally Israel's intention here and how long we know that Netanyahu will go to make sure that Iran is totally eradicated as we know it.
Emily, you work with a lot of veterans groups, and I wonder how you think that language about you will fail lands with either active duty military or the veterans.
It reads like a betrayal. It reads like a prediction. It reads like there's no faith in those brave men and women who put on the uniform, who have bled under and died.
Has nothing to
under
do
the
with them,
flag
you
that
disingenuous people. It has
his
nothing
eyes
to do
under,
with the people on the
being a
ground.
loved one of someone who has deployed under
We're
Biden
not even
and deployed
talking
under
about
President
that.
Trump, there's a real difference in that stress level, a phenomenal delta between the two. And this is a president who understands the stewardship of our greatest treasure, which is our brave men and women in uniform and in the shadows.
Really?
And does not take the loss of those 6 American lives lightly. He
You
takes
think?
it with the gravitas that it deserves, and I find it despicable that, for example, behind Schumer, we saw Senator Kaine called it an invasion of Iran. And then when Hakeem Jeffries talks about billions of dollars for bombs, it was under Obama's JCPOA
yeah, it's an invasion. Hello.
that we paid $1.3 billion to Iran in interest alone. The principal was just $400 million, just. And that somehow is supposed to be divorced from what he's talking about. We still pay, by the way, $83 million per week to the Taliban. We still do, because it's caught up right now in the Senate. There's a lot of machinations behind the scenes that have fomented those radicals over there. And the thought that somehow it was fine or that it wasn't fomenting, that there wasn't an absolute daily and constant risk of Americans' lives and of our allied interests is an absolute lie. And for those Democratic senators and congressmen to pretend that there was somehow a stability, that our interests weren't threatened, that the veneer over the abscess that we've been operating under for all of these years can somehow then be kicked down the can just because everyone else before us didn't have the vertebrae to do it. It is such a slap in the face, and I find it massively disrespectful. I feel, however, no surprise whatsoever from any of them who have never shown a modicum of support for the reasons that people sign up for service and the reasons that President Trump has vowed to protect those
Can
interests.
I just add really quickly, Ruben Gallego, Seth Moulton, Jason Crow, all Democrats, all veterans that oppose what's going on here and want to see it debated. Those people know.
You think they
what
agree with
Yeah.
Hakeem Jeffries that it's going to fail?
I have not seen the comments on that.
maybe we'll
But
ask.
I'm just saying there are people who serve this country and know about sacrifice
Yeah.
who are concerned about what we're doing over there.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming.
Is going to attend the dignified transfer for these families. Given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that is threatening in the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Secretary Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the Secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the Secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more.
Drones get through or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad.
Yeah,
as you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the Secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
that's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That is an objectable fact.
I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make
if you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree.
This is actually interesting. Watch this, guys.
Do you know who's killed more people than ICE this year? Trans shooters. Do you know the majority of these high school shootings have been transgender people?
It's not true.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Talk to this transgender person, like, hey, can I run something by you? And I spoke with them. They described to me a level of oppression that genuinely fucking broke my heart. They said, hey, let me tell you, like, I am not allowed to use the bathroom at my own place of work. We've got, like,
That's not true. They're just not allowed to use the bathroom. It doesn't align with their biological sex.
Okay.
But you got to realize, they're not all... Listen, I genuinely think there's people that feel like they are in the wrong biological sex.
Sure.
Right? But there's also people that are fucking perverts. And they have a thing called autogynephilia. And what that is they get a turn on by pretending to be a woman. They get excited by it.
Not true.
And they want to be around women. And they're creeps. And so you give them a fucking Willy Wonka golden ticket to go into the women's locker room and the women's bathroom and stare at women and pretend you're a woman when you're just a crazy man and you're actually into women.
Okay.
That's real too, man.
I don't doubt that that's real, and I know that it's a super complex, nuanced thing.
But here's what's not complex. What is your chromosomes?
Right.
Okay? This is the same thing for competing. Right. All these fucking mental gymnastics that seemingly intelligent people do.
Chromosomes, dude. Yeah, look it up. Look a little deeper, you dumb fuck. You fucking ape.
To justify biological males competing with females.
Oh, I don't think anybody's
It's the same
that.
thing.
Right.
It's the same thing.
No.
Right.
And especially as speaking as a man who has daughters, like, there are creeps. And if you give a creep, and I'm not saying all trans people are creeps,
right,
but a lot of these fucking people that are in trouble for going into women's bathrooms
no
dressed
one's
as
doing
a
this.
woman with
That's
a fucking
happening.
beard and a hard-on are just that. They're creeps.
No, they aren't.
They're crazy men. And these crazy men, their entire life, they would get beaten up for that. And now all of a sudden, they have to be accepted. So you've got two things going on at the same time.
For sure.
You've got people with gender dysphoria that genuinely wish they were a woman or genuinely wish they were a man. And by the way, it's men that are the problem. No one gives a fuck about trans men going into the men's bathroom. Come on in. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares? Oh, a girl's going to shit next to you? Or what is she going to do? She's going to pee out of a funnel? What is she going to do? Like,
Hey,
no
I'm
one's
not-
going to
I'm
get
not- I'm
hurt.
not arguing
No
with
one's
you
going to
on
get
this.
hurt. This is the problem. When you allow perverts to have this hall pass to go into women's locker rooms and bathrooms,
Yeah.
so you can't say you're not allowed to use the...
No, he's just a transphobe. Straight and simple, Joe Rogan is a transphobe. Literally. What's he going to do if, his daughter turns into a trans? He wouldn't care, right? Yeah, see, he's like, yeah. I don't care if a girl turns into a man. Who gives a fuck about that? That's not a big deal. It's the other way around that I care about. Because I have these thoughts in my head. He's almost self-telling. He's almost self-reporting here.
bathroom where you work.
Like dressing up like a girl, Joe? You like dressing up like a girl and going in women's bathrooms, Joe? You're the one having the fantasy.
That's not true.
Show me this happening. This is your fantasy, brother. This is your fantasy.
Not allowed to use the women's room where other women are in there because you're not a woman. And I know you wish you...
What?
Were a woman, or...
He's basically saying, have dick, can't go in the room. That's what he's saying.
Whatever's going on,
Okay.
but you're
You know
not.
what? You make a very, very good point.
If you're a woman, talk to most women about this. And
Right.
it's... Unless they're insanely captured by this...
No. Most women that you're around that are bigoted, yeah.
woke ideology where they can't see reality and the fact that perverts are still a real
He's like,
fucking thing.
Yeah.
And this...
Yeah, you got to be woke. Once you're woke, you don't know what a pervert is anymore. In fact, we know better than anything what a fucking pervert is at being woke. What are you talking about? We're always talking about perverts and putting them away because they fucking suck because they're always getting away with it. Like I said, you're self-reporting right now, brother.
You've given loopholes. Like, there's
Nope.
men in prison.
Bro.
I think it's like 47 biological males in California are housed in women's prisons. Some of them are sex offenders.
So? Men are fucking other men and fucking in the prison all the time. What are you talking about? They got bottoms and tops. You fucking kidding me? Jesus Christ.
Some of them in Canada. There's a guy in Canada that they had to pay for his boob job while he was in jail for being a sex offender, and they put him in a women's prison. Yeah.
Not true.
I'm not.
Not true. Not true. That was debunked.
Not arguing with
There's
any of that.
men who have pretended to be women, gone into women's prison, had sex with women and impregnated them. There's men who have sexually assaulted and
Where?
raped women in prison that are pretending to be women with functional dicks.
I just thought, man, I heard what they had to say about, politicians trying to put them in internment camps and,
Who's doing that? What politicians are saying they should be put in
I think that
internment
there
camps?
was some kind of
There might be one kook out there that's saying that to try to get attention. There's no movement to try to put transgender people in internment camps.
Okay, well then I'll land on this.
Do you know who's killed more people than ICE this year? Trans shooters. Do you know the majority of these high school shootings have been transgender people?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, we have to understand that, like, what is more important? One person's feelings or the safety of all these women? And the safety of all these women is much more important.
Yep.
So you gotta be kind to people, but also you gotta have rules. There's a reason why there's a woman's room and a men's room. It's because some men are fucking creeps. And if you allow those creeps to just put on a dress, and again, I'm not saying all trans people
It's not
are
happening,
at all,
Joe.
but you can't have that loophole. You can't. Let's like you can't have an open border. Doesn't mean that all immigrants are murderers, and you don't think that either, right? But
don't.
some people that sneak across the border, if you don't check, are going to be murderers. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So you have to have.
Wow. He's lost it. He's lost it, dude. He's fully unhinged. It's over for him. He's fully unhinged, dude.
All right, guys. So this right here is honestly
You might as well join
hilarious.
these guys.
So, as you all know, Alex Jones is like Chief Donald Trump meat rider. All he does is fucking, do tricks on that thing all day long. I mean, he's twerking on that little tiny mushroom dick. It's all like, I'm sorry to give you that sort of mental imagery, but his whole career now has boiled down to, I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader for the regime, right? I mean, we have Palantir mass spying on absolutely everybody. The tech AI billionaires are saying we're going to steal all of your jobs. He's launching a new war every fucking week. And Alex Jones is sitting there like, actually, no, I think this stuff is great. I love it when they spy on you, and I love it when they
wars.
wars because I
We
like
love wars.
Trump, so now I'm going to forget everything I said in the past.
Return of the Frog's gay.
It's been just pathetic to watch. And his own audience has revolted against him. And, like, they say he's soft on Israel because he is soft on Israel. He's soft on Peter Thiel. All that stuff, right? And so Nick Fuentes has gone a different path. Nick Fuentes has done the, like, I'm to the right of Trump. I'm the most pure right-winger. And also, they suck so hard that I actually want you to vote Democrat. And they betrayed you. And so these are definitely, they're on different paths. But, Alex would give softball interviews to Nick all the time, like totally papering over the fact that you guys actually disagree on, like, a lot of things now, right? Certainly your disposition to the Trump regime. Alex is just way too pro-Trump regime, and Nick has distanced himself, okay? Well, now it appears like the war in Iran is a bit of a breaking point for Alex. And perhaps he realizes, like, hey, man, my audience will revolt. I'll have nobody left watching me if I'm still riding for this shit, okay? So Alex Jones has on Nick Fuentes, and there are so many hilarious moments here. Let's listen to their conversation.
I got some horrible news for radio listeners.
Got some horrible news for That's right.
Just like I said at the start of the show.
Just like I said at the start of the show.
Forever war. No, we're not talking about a Hollywood movie with Tom Cruise. We're talking about...
Is it just me or his voice becoming even more Alex Jonesy than it used to be?
He sounds like
we've
shit.
reached peak Alex Jones, like weird, low, gravelly voice.
He just said 1984, forever war. Reuters. They're printing the article now. What the hell is that, Nick Fuentes? I mean, this is just... It's like Trump is an old barn burning down in lifetime.
Yeah, it's a sight to behold, especially for us. I think that a lot of people got red-pilled after the pandemic. Maybe they don't realize the gravity of this, but this is just like, what else is there even to say? I mean, at this point, this is the same guy that came down the escalator and said, the war in Iraq was a big mistake. We should have never been there. We knew they had no weapons of mass destruction. And now he says, we're fighting a forever war against Iran for regime change. You just have to shake your head. And you wonder how people are still on board. That's honestly the worst part is you go on Twitter and people are still making excuses. They say, oh, it's about China. Well, we'll wait until there's boots on the ground. You go, really? I mean...
By the way, he's not wrong because there's a poll that just came out. I don't know if it was they asked Republicans or MAGA Republicans, but it was 85% of them support what Trump is doing in Iran now. Why? Because he's doing it, and he's him, and he's special, and they like him. So, like, before the attack, it was like 40 or 50%, maybe a high of 55% of Republican voters said, I would support war with Iran. Now it shot up to 85%, just like the last time, just like the last round of bombs against Iran. So, yes, when I say the Republican Party is a terrorist death cult, I choose those words with purpose. I'm using that for specific reasons. It's accurate. It's accurate, okay?
Yeah.
Somebody said the only difference between Trump and Jim Jones is that Trump would charge you for the Kool-Aid that kills you, whereas Jim Jones just gives it to you. I think that's pretty fucking accurate. So now even Fuentes is going, man, these guys are fucking, they're brain dead. They're brain dead, Kool-Aid drinking, death cultist, terrorist fucking morons.
I don't know what people need to see for them to realize that we got tricked, we got betrayed. Now we need to try something else. But yeah, it's shocking to hear these things. He goes, I don't have the yips about boots on the ground. You don't have the yips. We're going to deploy to the Middle East again? seriously? And then they say, we can go indefinitely. We're going to fight forever. Now, in fairness, I think that when he says that, that is rhetoric. And that...
Where's your Felford Again Award hat? Oh, my God. Look, I'm telling you, it's an iron law of reality. If Trump says, I'm going to do this good thing, he's lying, he's not going to do it. But if he says, I'm going to do this bad thing, he's
doing it.
Going to do it. This is one of the bad things. So it's going to happen.
It's antithetical to what he ran on.
Right.
I love how they're having these revelations years after all of us on the left, every liberal and leftist in the country was like, hey man, he's a fucking con man, he's a fraudster, he's a liar, he's a warmonger, he's gonna say something and do the opposite, he's gonna do more war, it's gonna be horrible. All of us were saying it. Now here they are, fucking, what are we, over 10 years into the fucking Donald Trump political experiment, and they're like, did you know he ran on the opposite, bro? Did you know that? Like, so when he said this stuff, he was lying. He wasn't even telling the truth, bro. It was like the opposite of what he did, man. Oh, is it? Oh, thank you. Oh, aren't you some big special boys? You figured it out. You were able to piece it together. That's adorable. Like, and this is why I say, look, anybody who wants to flip sides and come with us, that's great, but get to the back of the motherfucking line, bitch. Because we got people who were right all along. We got people who didn't fall for it again 78 times. Okay? So that's the big thing, is like, okay, you want to join? Phenomenal, join. But let's understand a couple things here. Your analysis skills are just objectively inferior.
Because that's what the Pentagon wants, is a 20-year war like Afghanistan that's just a big moneymaker.
It is antithetical. And here's the thing. Trump can gesture and bluff all he wants, but we are in the war and we're getting drawn in. So the problem with those kinds of things is, the Pentagon is going to take that and run with it. You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Well, yeah, let's be clear. Let's go to break. Talk about this. It just blew me away. I mean, the Iranians lost 2 million people. That's World War I numbers in the proxy war with Iraq against Iran backed by us. These people do not fuck around. Yeah, a bunch of high school, college kids are out running around protesting. They're not going to kill people, folks. The Muslims are willing to do it.
Okay. Not done yet, though, because now we got some more.
Can you speak to what you predict happens down this road we're going? And just, there's got to be other ways of leverage. If we can't leverage Trump, who do we put pressure on in Congress to stop this, or is AIPAC too powerful?
By the way, I love how for Alex Jones, like, he'll say something and the answer will be like, well, there's Democrats who will fight it. It won't even occur to him. Because, in his mind, like, liberal, leftist, progressive, Democrat, it's just like evil, bad, wrong, terrible, Satan, etc. And it's like, is there any, I don't know, maybe group of people that might be opposed to this? Yeah, the left flank of the Democrats, you dumb fat bitch. But that won't occur to him because, they're bad.
I think what has been set in motion cannot be stopped at this point. I think that the time to do it would have been in 24, and everybody reassured us that if Trump won, well, we would pressure Trump later. I remember Mike Cernovich said that. He said, well, this is how politics works. You don't know how politics works. I do. He said, you got to get Trump elected, and then we're going to work in the admin, and we're going to fight the personnel and blah, blah. And I know we've had this conversation. This is always my refrain. It's like, we tried that. We did that. We did that in the first term. And by the way, how did the first term end? Trump ripped up the 2018 nuclear deal. In 2019, we're effectively in a war with Iran. In 2020, he kills Qasem Soleimani. We're shooting down drones. They're attacking tankers. You can Google it. There was an article, I believe it was in December 2020. Trump actually ordered the military to attack Iran, or at least was considering it, in the lame duck session. And it was only his generals that discouraged him from doing it. So it's like, this is deja vu all over again. We live this, and we tried all that. The personnel, the voting, the Twitter campaign, the hashtags. And I think that, now Trump is going to do what Trump is going to do. And Trump, who knows why? Blackmail, persuasion, whatever. Those people are around him.
It's ego. You said it now. It's ego.
It's ego, certainly. Whatever it is, that's what we're stuck with. And I think that if you want to really get it to stop, you just got to switch up and play both sides. You got to play both sides and go Democrat. And I don't want to do it. I don't like the Democrats. I fully understand what they represent. But what else can you do to the Republicans? All that other stuff is flaccid. Protest, tweet about it. They know if you are going to vote in November that you're really not serious. You're going to go and rah, 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 hold up the sign. But as long as they get your vote in the end, I mean, honestly, what difference does it make for them? There's a little less enthusiasm. They don't care. So I'm really, like I said, I think that we actually have to think beyond this. And we have to think the only way out of it is 28. How do we relight the flame in 28? That's all I care about. And for that to happen, maybe there needs to be a little pain. The current GOP has to suffer a little bit for it to be reborn in 28. But it's not going to be Vance and Rubio that save the day, obviously, based on this.
Saying directly to Alex Jones' face, hey, big guy, it's time to vote Democrat. You might not like that, but you got to do what you got to do. It's the right thing, Alex. It's the right thing, Alex. Don't take it from me. Take it from Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. The Groypers are now the ones who are saying, Alex, hey, Alex, you got to go Democrat. You got to go Democrat. All right, but there's more. Here we go.
And I'm watching it sink by its own doing. And so this is horrifying. And so...
He's literally going to nearly cry here. Watch. This is hilarious. He starts, weeping.
But I can't sign on to covering up Epstein. I can't sign on to World War III. And so that's why I tried to promote the optimism, because I fucking need this, man. Like,
he's crying. But notice what he's saying here. It's actually important. He's admitting, hey, all that like Trump dick sucking, when I was sucking Trump's penis for the past number of years, like, I was just being optimistic. I was just saying, like, well, you know, he's better than the Democrats and, like, you know, he's not failing us in some ways. But he's admitting that, like, I wasn't telling you guys the truth. I wasn't telling you the truth. In fact, he's literally about to say, from now on, I'm going to be more of a realist. In other words, from now on, what, you'll stop lying and you'll be honest now? Is that, so you're admitting that you were lying before, right? Again, nearly crying as like, oh, Trump.
and so that's why I tried to promote the optimism, because I fucking need this, man. Like, I want to fix the country. I want to turn it around. So it's not that I was delusional.
You were motherfucking delusional, bitch. You were motherfucking delusional.
And I still hope we can turn it around, but I just... Sorry, go ahead. You get what I'm saying?
I get it. I get it. And listen, like I said, I don't think that everybody that supported Trump was being dismissive about these concerns. I get it. You know, we all wanted to believe. I was 18 years old when Trump ran in 2016. And I remember getting in fights with people. This is my whole life too. At 18 years old, I wore the MAGA hat at Boston University, one of the most liberal campuses in the country, and became a pariah on my college campus.
It's sad to see something you fought and bled for die.
Homie, it's been dead for so long. There's a clip of Alex Jones in the first term when Trump bombed Syria, and he's crying even more aggressively than he is here. He's like, oh, why do you have to ruin it? Everything was so good, and then he made it like this, and this is just horrible. He ruined it. So, bro, you admitted this shit yourself. This is a man who's always been a warmonger. Increased drone strikes over 400%, increased the Pentagon every single year. I mean, like, hired every neocon in Washington, D.C., bombed Somalia on top of Syria, kept us in Iraq and Afghanistan, killed Qasem Soleimani, and you're out here like, can you believe he's doing wars? Yeah, motherfucker, I can, and we warned you.
Oh, that's my whole adult life. I know that's a huge part of your life also, and now we're witnessing it's totally unraveling. It's an utter and complete betrayal. It's heartbreaking in many ways.
And when I try to salvage it with people, I get attacked as a liberal, which is when these people doing that can't even find Iran on a fucking map.
Yeah, well, what's called for is for us to be sober-minded about the entire thing, because there's a lot of Trump haters.
I've been a real.
Tell him, Nick. Tell him.
The whole time, but was hoping, and now I'm just not even hoping. I'm just going to be a realist.
Yeah, I mean, and really, it's okay to have hope. I mean, we hope for a better future, but we got to be brutally honest about what this administration has become.
Oh yes, a broken down, sad Alex Jones with Nick Fuentes in front of him saying, "Alex, hey, Alex, you got to vote Democrat, man. It's the only thing to do. It's the only way to go. You got to vote Democrat." And then finally, I got to read this for you because it's hilarious.
We're winning, folks.
Every day now every day on Nick Fuentes' show, it's like, let me find 17 different new ways to tell you got to vote Democrat. So he said on this last one, quote, "Maybe if a Democrat were in office, we wouldn't go to war with Iran. Joe Biden kept us out of war with Iran." He also ended the war in Afghanistan, which nobody except fucking me gave him credit for, even though he deserved a tremendous amount of credit for telling the entire military-industrial complex to suck his dick, okay? That was awesome. He nearly eliminated the drone war. That was great, too. It turns out, if you're being honest, you find out very quickly the Democrats are objectively better than Republicans, and it's not particularly close. They have their problems. They have issues. I mean, I've criticized them when need be, like Biden arming and funding a genocide is just one example. But when it comes to the economic realm, when it comes to other elements of foreign policy,
no, they suck
when
too.
It comes to social policy, there's no comparison.
Oh, yeah,
There's no comparison. Like I said the other day, because Fuentes does the both sides shtick, too, where he's like, oh, whoever we vote for, we always get the same thing. Not true, bitch. If Al Gore was in office and he won that 2000 election and every election since then was Democrats instead of Republicans, no Iraq war, no Afghanistan war, maybe not even 9/11.
I don't know about that.
Fucking subprime mortgage crisis and Great Recession handled much better. No massive tax cuts for the rich. We'd probably have, a universal child care program or something like that. If it was from 2000 on, if every time it was a Democrat who won, it would be like that fucking meme of the futuristic city where everybody's happy and you got the flying cars.
It's not going to be
all
China.
that shit.
No.
But no, you guys want to fuck around and elect a dumbass fucking piece of shit, fascist, imperialist, bloodthirsty warmonger who's like the biggest liar in history, who has the IQ of a dead wombat, and try that out a couple times. And look where we are now. Look where we are now. Fucking World War III is here. But, man, they are coping and seething, and it is glorious to see.
Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well.
But Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, could not have been clearer. And what you're expecting me to do is pretend he said the complete opposite.
It seems to me that Rubio slightly misspoke and he had to clarify himself yesterday.
You think?
Again,
I didn't see a man showing any great courage, either before, during, or after his demise.
You see cowards all over the Middle East, Europe, and here in America bowing to Israel. Does it take courage to know that you're going to be killed and take on Israel anyway and refuse to bend a knee? Of course it does. Just like Bill Maher when he said the 9/11 guys were obviously terrible terrorists, but did it take courage to run into the buildings? Of course it did.
Cenk Uygur, who I'm always reminded has the morality of a cockroach and the IQ of a tadpole. You are
Maybe they'll pummel
clinically
your car.
retarded.
Eddie, then you pan to one shot of Josh, and there's his book with Israel in the title. Israel, everybody serve Israel.
I have
look.
published content.
Israel,
Literally
Israel.
put my hand on the Bible.
It's right behind you, dude.
A crystal clear argument from our leaders is a foundational necessity for going to war. That's why Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell sacrificed their reputations and legacies for the dodgy dossier which they used to justify invading Iraq. And that's why muddled messaging on Iran is now wreaking havoc on both sides of the Atlantic. Prime Minister Starmer's shifting position has triggered an unprecedented rebuke from President Trump.
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Well, Starmer specifically cited the mistakes of Iraq in denying US permission to use its bases for attacking Iran. But less than 2 days later, he did give permission for the US to use UK bases for defensive strikes. The net effect is annoying just about everybody. He could have stood in lockstep with our greatest ally, or he could have taken a bold stand on international law by demanding diplomacy over bombs. Instead, nobody knows what Starmer's position really is or whether it will stick. And frankly, on a far bigger scale, the exact same thing applies to the United States government. There are two simple questions that any wartime leader has to answer. What is the aim of this war, and why did it have to start now? Well, for the first few days of this week, we had an answer to the second question. Israel forced the US into war. That wasn't a Cenk Uygur conspiracy theory, but the explanation given by very senior Republicans.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded.
Israel faced an existential risk, and they were prepared to strike Iran alone. If that happened, Iran was very likely to target our troops. That may address the question of why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Why not 2 months from now?
That if Israel fired upon Iran and took action against Iran to take out the missiles, then they would have immediately retaliated against U.S. personnel and assets.
Well, unsurprisingly, that narrative didn't play very well. There's now a rush of Republicans, including Rubio himself, explaining why he didn't say what he said. The same thing applies to the shifting pretext for war. The nuclear sites were obliterated, but we need to apparently obliterate them again. The war is to change the regime, but it's not a regime change war, or even a war. The Iranian people must do this on their own, but as we're learning today, the CIA may arm a Kurdish militia to help them do it. A crystal clear argument is always essential for several vital reasons. Voters need to tolerate the cost of war in dollars and in lives. Servicemen and women need to believe there's a purpose for risking their lives. Allies need to understand what they're being asked to support, and most of all, a clear objective means a clear ending. You can't declare victory if you don't know what victory actually is. Well, joining me to discuss all this is Cenk Uygur, the founder and CEO of the Young Turks, Peter Beinart, author of the Beinart Notebook on Substack, Josh Hammer, author of Israel and Civilization, and the CPAC chairman, Matt Schlapp. Well, welcome to all of you. Matt Schlapp, let me start with you. Donald Trump's approval rating has fallen to an all-time low. A significant majority of Americans have turned on him over this war in Iran. A new Daily Mail JL Partners poll found the president's approval rating now stands at 44%, down 4 points.
That's
since Friday,
crazy.
and the lowest rating recorded in Daily Mail tracking to date. So this is something that was unpopular anyway, has become increasingly unpopular since it started several days ago. And it represents, as I said at the time, an extremely big gamble by Donald Trump. I'm not, confident to say whether it's going to succeed or not, but I am confident in saying this is the biggest gamble of his presidency in either term and will determine, I think, his legacy. Are you concerned about this? I mean, when you see the changing position of the Republicans, which has been, flip-flopping around all week as to what the real pretext for this war is, and they're not even calling it a war yet. Does it concern you?
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't call Donald Trump a gambler. I do think he's a risk taker. I think, unlike our previous presidents, if he thinks something is in the interest of the United States, he does it. It's a pretty clear calculus as far as I'm concerned. I think it's foolish to think that Donald Trump is somehow being led by the nose by Benjamin Netanyahu. I think that's a bit of a conspiracy theory. Are our nations closely aligned? Yes. Do Netanyahu and Trump have a good relationship? They do. Do we have a similar strategic interest? Absolutely. Do I think Donald Trump did this because he received actionable intelligence that Iran still had heightened capabilities when it came to ICBMs and their missile capabilities, which were not taken out by the previous strike, and that their nuclear program, although hobbled, still exists. He believed there was more work to do to make sure that those threats were taken care of. Now, I think anybody who follows American politics would say this is awfully risky politically. We're in a very important election year. If Donald Trump loses majorities in the House, he'll be impeached. He's in the Senate. He won't be able to make any big court appointments, including to the Supreme Court. But I think in his mind, I trust him, number one, and in his mind, he believed this was the right thing to do, not just for Israel. I think that's a sidebar. He thought this was the right thing to do for America. He believed America was vulnerable with an Iran that was so aggressive and had capabilities that expand what maybe most people know.
Okay, Cenk, welcome back to Uncensored. I want to get to your response to that, and in particular the flip-flopping by the likes of Rubio over this question of whether it was a preemptive action because of something that Israel may do or not. But I just want to talk to you first of all about the little exchange you and I had on X, because I was a little bit bemused by this. You posted this on Sunday. I criticized Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei 1,000 times. He was oppressing his own people and preventing democracy. But there's one thing you can't take away from him. He died on his own 2 feet instead of kneeling to Israel. That took courage.
Yep.
He didn't
I agree,
bow.
actually.
I responded to you saying that I didn't think there was anything courageous about this. He shamefully repressed his people. He sponsored terrorism all over the world. That's not cowardly. That's cowardly, not courageous. I just wonder whether, on reflection, you're happy about the wording of the post you made, because I just couldn't follow the thread. Where was he not bowing to Israel? I mean, the guy was meeting with all his top people, presumably sitting down, ironically, and he got blown to pieces because of his decades of terrorism he waged against Israel. But I didn't see a man showing any great courage either before, during, or after his demise.
Yeah. So I definitely want to address what Matt Schlapp just said in the heart of this issue. But in terms of that issue, Piers, I don't understand why it's so confusing to you. So, yeah, Ayatollah was a terrible guy. We've said that on the Young Turks a million times. And he repressed his own people. At the same time, as you see cowards all over the Middle East, Europe, and here in America bowing to Israel. And no matter what they do, they bow, they bow. And so this guy knew that he was going to get killed. I mean, look at what happened to Hezbollah. Look at what happened to Hamas. You know, what you got to give Israel credit for is they're excellent in terms of intelligence and military. That's why they should fight their own wars and not drag us into it. But does it take courage to know that you're going to be killed and take on Israel anyway and refuse to bend a knee? Of course it does. Where's the question? Like, you're trying to make it seem like since he has 19 other or 99 other terrible qualities, we have to lie and say that it's not courageous to take on Israel when you know you're going to die. No, of course, that's a
like
definition.
saying, all right, it's a bit, okay, but I would say this, it's a bit like saying, you know, Adolf Hitler was a terrible man, but because part of him may have thought, well, I may end up dead if I pursue this policy of wanting global domination through Holocaust and other means, that somehow that was an act of courage. It wasn't. The guy was a genocidal maniac. I'm struggling to see what is courageous about this Ayatollah.
Yeah, so Piers, it's so easy to say, this guy is bad, so everything about him is bad. And if anybody says anything good about him, then you're a monster. For example, the old thing about Hitler being a vegetarian. So do we have to hate all vegetarians? Do we have to say that it was a terrible thing that Hitler was a vegetarian? No one should be a vegetarian. No, Hitler is a disgusting, terrible person. Ayatollah was terrible. By the way, Netanyahu's way worse than the Ayatollah. Are we allowed to say anything positive about Netanyahu? I mean, I think he's strategically brilliant. Oh, no, you can't say something positive about a person who's terrible. Yeah, Netanyahu is one of the worst terrorists in the world, but he is
but that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is what you've not explained to me is where the courage is in this Ayatollah's position. He was a ruthless leader who pursued the policy. Well, hang on, let me finish. Hang on. Let me articulate what I mean. So I'm struggling to see what is courageous about ruling over a regime that oppresses its own people, murdering thousands of them only recently.
That's not the courageous part.
But hang on. On the foreign stage, it wages a systematic, targeted series of, through tentacles like Hamas, Houthis and Hamas, attempts to try and obliterate Israel and everything it stands for. There's nothing courageous about that.
But Piers, you see what you're doing, right? You're switching it up. It's like a three-card Monty. I'm saying he was courageous for taking on Israel when almost all the other world leaders are cowards and kneel before Israel. And you're saying, wait, it's not courageous to oppress your own people. Yeah, because that's a different topic. It's not courageous at all to oppress your own people, especially when you have, over 1 million people in the Iran Revolutionary Guard. They've been a terribly oppressive government. That doesn't mean that final act of opposing Israel was courageous. I mean, look at our cowardly leaders. Trump bows, Biden bows, Kamala Harris bowed, Mike Johnson, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, they all bow like cowards. It's a disgusting display. None of us want to see it. So no, you're not going to get me to back away. This is, you know what this is exactly
okay, let me ask you this.
Hold on, let me finish the thought. Let me just finish the thought real quick, 10 seconds. Just like Bill Maher, when he said the 9/11 guys were obviously terrible terrorists. Obviously, Bill Maher thinks that. But did it take courage to run into the buildings? Of course it did. Of course, they're heinous, terrible people, but Bill Maher was right. Obviously, that's not a cowardly thing to do. I wish they hadn't done it. It's a terrible, disgusting thing to do. But this is kind of obvious. It feels, you know what it is? It's like obvious bad faith. Oh, we caught Cenk saying something that is true. But let's try to use it to smear him and pretend that he meant that the Ayatollah was an angel. That's not remotely true.
I don't think it was true. And if it was Netanyahu who got killed in this war, I'm pretty certain Cenk Uygur would not be lining up to call him courageous because of the way he stood up to the terrorism from Iran.
But he hides behind America. He hides behind everyone else.
Right.
Netanyahu has no courage at all. But on the other hand, hold on, as I just told you,
you would not call him courageous. That's my point.
As I just told you, no, because Israel is like the safest place on earth. It has Iron Dome, it has nukes, it has the best military in the Middle East and it has all of America backing it, all of Europe backing it. So that's not any courage. Like, oh, I ordered America into the war. That's not courageous. It is strategically smart, though. So, would I make a positive comment about Netanyahu, even though I think he's the biggest terrorist in the world? Of course I would, because he was brilliant strategically. He is today. He uses the Americans as suckers. He's stolen like $300 billion from us, caused us to fight his wars at the tune of $8 trillion. He pushed us into the Iraq war. He just pushed us into the Iran war. So that is brilliant. And I get that he wants to protect Israeli interests. So I give the devil his due, whether it's Netanyahu or the Ayatollah.
All right, I'm going to come back and get your response to what Matt Schlapp said on the bigger picture. But I do want to get the other panelists to comment on this, because I'd be very curious if anybody else genuinely thinks that the Ayatollah Khomeini was a man of courage. Josh Hammer, what's your response to that?
Yeah, Pierce, look, I think it would be very easy to, dunk on Cenk Uyghur, who I'm always reminded has the morality of a cockroach and the IQ of a tadpole. I mean, it would be very easy for me to kind of just launch off, and explain why this morbidly obese fat oaf just continues to bloviate and find himself on the wrong side of every single geopolitical issue. But I'd rather cut to the actual heart of the substance here, Pierce, which is this narrative that's being advanced here, unfortunately, a little bit in your opening monologue as well, which I think is contrary to what was actually said. So this Marco Rubio clip that's making the rounds there, Rubio himself literally said was taken remarkably out of context. If you actually play the full clip there, it's pretty clear that he didn't say what you Pierce have said and what many others said that Marco Rubio actually said.
Where are you guys playing?
Donald Trump yesterday, when he was meeting with the Chancellor of Germany there in the White House, was asked point blank, did Israel drag you into this war? Donald Trump said, no, if anything, we actually forced their hand. Marco Rubio reiterated that yesterday. Pete Hegseth reiterating that yet again.
Well, let's play, okay. Look, hang on, let's play the whole Rubio
clip. What hilarious
Israeli propaganda. Let's play the Rubio clip.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked a question.
No, were you the one that? Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that. You from that follow-up, and I said no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program. That Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. And if you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right?
So that was his rebuttal to what he'd said, but this is what he said the day before.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded.
Israel faced an existential risk, and they were prepared to strike Iran alone. If that happened, Iran was very likely to target our troops. That may address the question of why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Why not 2 months from now?
I mean, it couldn't be clearer. I'm not sure how we've taken this out of context. I mean, Rubio made it crystal clear in very simple language that the reason that America took preemptive action is because they understood that we clearly assume Israel was about to attack Iran, and that the side effect of that, the consequence of that, would be that Iran would lash out and potentially attack American interests, bases or whatever. He couldn't have been clearer. And what happened then was they realized
you guys,
this was playing incredibly badly when a bunch of Republicans lined up with this same talking point. Donald Trump reframed the narrative in a different way, and then suddenly out they all come saying the complete opposite to what they'd said the day before.
No, it has come out, okay? We now know over the past 40 hours, it has come out that this operation was planned, Piers, for months and months. We now know that the Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff negotiations were what many of us said they were, which is a red herring and a decoy. That has all come out. This was in the works. Trump and Netanyahu working hand in glove, planning this joint binational operation for months and months and months now. What they are saying is that the reason that it happens literally on Saturday, the actual ultimate reason is that the CIA found out that Khamenei was going to be physically present at this meeting with all the rest of the top council here. That is the actual reason that the CIA got the intelligence. They've said that also publicly. It's all publicly available. So we now know that because of that, perhaps because Israel was saber-rattling about a possible last-minute strike there, that's why it happens literally this Saturday and not last Saturday, not next Saturday. But the fact that the two countries were going to go in together there, apparently that decision was made months ago. Again, that's all publicly available now. The Wall Street Journal, New York Times, they've all been reporting that the two countries have been planning this thing for months. The only debate is why it happened literally right now, because the CIA found out Khamenei would be there, Piers.
Fine. I'm not disputing that there may have been conversations going on for months about whether to do this. I'm simply saying that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, could not have been clearer in his public statements 48 hours ago when he was asked about this, that the reason for America and the attack on Iran was because they had information that Iran was going to get attacked by somebody else, that we presume to be Israel, and therefore this would then imperil potentially American interests coming back the other way from Iran. And he couldn't have been clearer. I mean, what they're expecting us to do, and what you're expecting me to do, is to listen to Marco Rubio's own words on camera and pretend he said the complete opposite. He couldn't have been clearer, and then they've done a complete screeching U-turn because they realise it looks ridiculous for the United States of America to have a position of saying we had a preemptive need to do this, but actually it turns out the preemptive need was Israel attacking Iran.
I'm shocked that this is so difficult for some people to grasp, apparently including you Pierre.
Really hard.
This was planned for months. It was literally planned for months.
So why didn't they say
that it happened... it seems to me that Rubio slightly misspoke, and he had to clarify himself yesterday.
You think?
Again, it's been. I'm not defending every single line that was said there, but the president of the United States could not possibly have been clearer there.
I finally died.
This has been planned for months. What Rubio is saying is that the actual reason happened on Saturday. Seems to me, if I'm trying to kind of put all these strands together, it seems to me that the reason it started on Saturday was a combination, one, of possible Israeli intelligence about a strike there. They want to go be.
He's a liar.
With the fact that the CIA, apparently it was CIA, not Mossad. The CIA found out that Khamenei would be at this meeting. Those are the two things, it seems, that made this operation start this past Saturday, not 2 Saturdays ago, not 2 Saturdays from now.
Okay.
But the fact this is going to happen, apparently that decision was made months and months and months ago.
Then all they had to do was say, we were in this with Israel from the start, we planned it together, and we went in together. It's very straightforward positioning, and we both felt that there was a need to launch a preemptive joint attack because we believed that we were both going to be under attack from Iran. They didn't say that. Let me bring in Peter Beinart. You know, I try and be fair and dispassionate, Peter, about all these things. I like to judge people on what comes out of their mouths. You know, and I'm afraid Marco Rubio is damned by what came out of his mouth. He is one of the most powerful men in America right now. I actually think he's been one of Trump's better performers, actually, in his role as Secretary of State. But you cannot watch those two clips and not conclude he said one thing, then pretended he said something completely different.
Right, but I think it's worth distinguishing two things. I think it may well be that the United States attacked when it did because it thought Israel was about to attack. But it still begs the question of why the United States didn't stop Israel from attacking. Israel has wanted, particularly Benjamin Netanyahu, has wanted America to go into war against Iran for a very, very long time. I think the other critical ingredient here, the thing that changed was not Israel wanting to be in a war against Iran. It was Donald Trump's mounting hubris as after the Venezuela operation. I think what's happened is that Donald Trump, after attacking in his first term Soleimani and not getting a significant Iranian response, and then the 12-day war last year, and now the attack on Venezuela, Trump now sees military action as a political winner for him, right? Something that makes him look good. And I don't think he's smart enough to recognize that he's now bitten off something which is fundamentally different than what he does in Venezuela. He even said yesterday, according to the New York Times, that they want to do in Iran, what they did in Venezuela. So I think the critical shifting aspect is not Israel. It's Trump's growing hubris about what American military action can produce.
Well, I'll come to Cenk now for the bigger picture question, which I didn't ask you the first time, which is if I'm Donald Trump and I'm trying to explain why I think there's a consistency to what I'm doing here. Trump doesn't believe in putting boots on the ground so far. He believes in surgically decapitating things and people, right? He believes in going in and taking out individuals or having very short attacks on nuclear capability or whatever it may be. In Venezuela, classic Trump, no boots on the ground, middle of a night attack, special forces snatching Maduro and his wife, get them out, no American dead. This is what he does. This is what he's always done. And he distinguishes in his head between that and putting big boots on the ground for a ground invasion. And there is clearly a qualitative difference. In Venezuela, he's taken a bet that if you get rid of Maduro, that the regime may stay in place, but they've now had the ultimate warning, you play by our rules or you're going to be next. And it puts them back in a box that can be controlled or not as threatening to the United States' interests. I think he's thinking the same thing can happen in Iran, where it's highly unlikely that he's going to get any kind of revolution of the kind that he talks about. I think it's far more likely and achievable because of the sheer power of the United States military, that what could happen is you could have the regime remaining in place, but severely neutered to a degree that it has no ability to progress with its nuclear program, and actually has no ability to represent much of a threat to the United States or Israel or anybody else. And it may be that that is what their actual game plan is here, without putting boots on the ground, and that may end up being successful. I don't know. None of us know, right? But if it was successful, it would at least have the benefit of being consistent with Trump's overall philosophy that you don't need to commit thousands of troops on the ground to effect regime control.
Yeah, this is all nonsense. Look, could Trump's hubris be a part of it? Of course he has hubris. Does he want to dip in and out of war? Yeah, I guess he does. But why does he want to go into war in the first place? That's the central question. Because he ran on anti-war. He ran on America first. Right now, we're not doing anything about grocery prices. Oil prices are going higher. The economy's slipping into a disaster, both higher inflation and higher unemployment. But he's obsessed with complying with Israel's demands. So Josh said something hilarious about how Marco Rubio misspoke. Well, Tom Cotton said the same thing. He's a senator, and Mike Johnson's the Speaker of the House, so he said the same thing. Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokesperson, said the same thing. So they all misspoke? No, they had their stated reason, which was Israel was not going to listen to us because they're the boss of us, and they were going to go bomb and endanger our troops. So we had to scurry and catch up to Israel and do as they command. So now you mentioned in the beginning, Piers, it turns out it's not a Cenk Uygur conspiracy theory, it's real. But think about the framing of conspiracy theories that our national media talks about. So I say, for example, and these are all verifiable facts, and they agree, these are facts, 94% of Congress gets money from the Israeli lobby. The number one lifetime donor to Donald Trump is Israeli lobby, $337 million. Number one lifetime donor to Biden is Israeli lobby. Mike Johnson, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, etc. Hold on, let me finish. So now the New York Times and others look at that and go, it is a conspiracy that billions of dollars given to scummy politicians would affect them. I think that that's the conspiracy theory is that it wouldn't affect them. Of course it affects them. Israel has bought our government. Hold on. Israel has bought our government lock, stock, and barrel. And did they do something else as well, with this Operation Epstein's Fury, in terms of getting blackmail on people? Yes, it's entirely possible. Because Epstein in every interaction was trying to help Israel, procured cyber weapons for Israel. Okay. So we have an enormous Israeli lobbying operation in America.
Piers, can I jump in?
Our politicians.
Yeah, let me bring Matt. Okay, let me bring. Okay,
to say that they are
Cenk,
not
you've had a good say.
when they obviously are.
Right. Yeah, we
are sick of Israeli control. They have driven Trump into every war. Every war.
I get it. And
I
get it.
Go ahead, deny it when it's obvious.
All right, but I'm going to come to Matt. I'm going to come to Matt to respond. What I would say, Cenk, is you are in danger of getting to the stage where if there is inclement weather in America, you instinctively blame Israel.
Because of Israel.
And I do think you've got to be slightly careful.
No,
you don't just sound like
that's because
Israel is responsible.
Blames Israel for everything.
But let me,
do you not understand, Piers?
We've done enough there.
Let me bring in
like they almost control all of Congress. Yes, because they literally donated to 94% of Congress.
Let me bring some
reality. Let me bring in Matt.
Let me bring in Matt.
Other people speak. Check.
Go ahead, lie.
Let me go.
Please don't talk.
Let me go here.
Cheng,
So,
the other I don't want to mute you, Cheng. So let Matt Schlapp respond.
Right. So I do think Israel is in charge of your brain. But the fact is, AIPAC and these other lobbies, it's true. They were very powerful in Washington, D.C. for a long period of time. And I do believe that you could argue that they were one of the most effective lobbies 25 years ago. Over time, I will just tell you, someone who's been in this town, their effectiveness from them and others has deteriorated. It's deteriorated to the point that even in Republican and conservative circles, we all have been watching this debate, this acrimony from people who are, leading voices in the conservative movement about wanting to rejigger the priorities in the Middle East and step away from Israel. So the idea that somehow politicians are bought and paid for by an Israeli lobby and somehow that's preventing people from having heterodox views is absurd. We're watching this all happen in real time. The reason why Donald Trump acted is not because Jared Kushner's Jewish or because some real estate guys who are Jewish gave him money. The reason why, or Bibi Netanyahu forced him to act, these are conspiracy theories, or I don't even know where you're going with Jeffrey Epstein. The reason he acted is because several presidents in a row have looked at the prospects of taking aggressive steps in Iran because Iran chants death to America on a regular basis, the leading sponsor of terrorism around the globe, including towards Americans. And we can go through the dozens and dozens examples of the outrageous behavior that moderate Arab states also know is a massive danger. That's the story that doesn't get told here. Most moderate Arab states, despite what they say publicly, are all for defanging Iran. And Donald Trump did this because he thought it was in the interest of the American people, not because he's playing games with polls or politics, but because he believed as the commander-in-chief, this was the right time to act in our interest as Americans.
Okay, just hold fire.
He just said that it was conspiratorial.
I think that the problem, if I can,
hang on, please. Hang on, please. I'm just going to ask the panel. If I could ask the panel just to have some patience, just for 5 minutes. Joining me now is the IDF spokesman, Nadav Shoshani. Welcome to you, Mr. Shoshani. Look, I don't know how much of that you may have been listening to.
How come I got no DPS over here?
That many people are promoting, that this has all been done at Israel's behest. It was a narrative that Marco Rubio and others explicitly laid out. They said, look, the reason America launched a strike when they did was because they knew that Israel were going to, and that the response would come back from Iran, and that might threaten American interests, and that's why America had to be preempted, which is now, they've now changed that position after the blowback they got. But what is the truth? I mean, is the truth that Israel decided to do this, and America then decided, well, if you do it, we're going to have to do something too? Or is, as some of my panelists have argued, something that's been in the works for months and months and months, and there's always going to be a joint operation?
Well, Pierce, first of all, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to see you're doing better. I'll answer the question. First of all, I've heard the Americans speak very loud and clear, all American leadership about it. I'm not a spokesperson for the Americans, but I can say, as someone who's been in the inner rooms in the IDF, that is not a real claim. It's not close to the truth. I think that even if anyone thought that, America is not one to be dragged by Israel, but being in the rooms, knowing what's been happening in recent weeks and months, has no relation to reality. This is a joint operation with a mutual enemy, shared interests, shared values, shared enemy. When they yell death to America, they yell death to Israel. When they yell death to Israel, they yell death to America. But I can explicitly say, since I'm an IDF spokesperson, knowing the planning for weeks and months, saying that Israel decided to attack alone and the U.S. was dragged into it is just completely false.
What people are struggling to understand is that last year, in the 12-day war, there was a specific attack on Iran's nuclear capability, which we were told had been incredibly successful. And yet here we are less than a year later, significantly less than a year later, with apparently a need to go to a full-blown war with them because they still have the ability to have nuclear capability. And people are struggling to put those two positions together. They're like, well, we thought we destroyed. That was the whole point of what happened last summer, was that was the end of that nuclear threat. Why is that threat now within 8-9 months now deemed to be so imminent then they have
the hell's
to be
going
exposed
on?
to a full-blown war.
Well, that's a great question. And first of all, your statement is absolutely correct. We gave a very heavy blow, Israel and the United States of America, to the Iranian nuclear program. But what happened after the 12-day war is Ayatollah Khamenei and Iranian leadership decided we're going to go full in. We're going to go full in on ballistic missiles, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we will obtain a nuclear weapon. Now, two things happened that are very disturbing. The first one is them hiding and digging deeper and concealing and fortifying their nuclear program. The idea is that even if they don't have nuclear weapons now, or they're not even producing them, but by the time that we understand something is happening, it's too late. And even the best technology, best bombers in the world won't be able to use that. So that's one ticking time bomb. And the second one is the ballistic missiles. What we're seeing in the last 4 or 5 days is incredible, unbelievable attacks by Iran towards the entire region, including European
Yeah, you didn't
countries,
expect that, did you?
including Australian, French, British assets in the region. And this is just a preview to how the reality would look like a year or two away if Iran continued in the pace of producing many hundreds of ballistic missiles a year. They were planning, we know this, they were planning to reach high numbers of ballistic missiles, all the way up to 8,000, 10,000 missiles, and get to a place where no one can deal with them. They are creating an immunity for them that no one would dare deal with them. And what we're seeing right now in recent days
What is he talking
shows
about?
the exact intent of the Iranian regime, but on a much smaller scale, because we caught this in the right timing.
Sure.
And by the way,
Okay,
Pierce,
but
there
what
was
we're not
one more important thing that's really important to mention. We also had a golden opportunity. We have golden intelligence that's been built up together with Americans for weeks on targeting Ayatollah Khamenei and the entire leadership, leading the way for the Iranian war machine. And we were able to make a real change, because what happened after the 12-day war, Ayatollah Khamenei decided we're going all in. Our lesson from the 12-day war is let's fight even harder. And I can guarantee you at least one thing. Ayatollah Khamenei will not be leading the way again all in against Israel and America.
Well, he may
Hello
not,
time.
his son might. He's being apparently promoted to be the new supreme leader. And the reality is the Revolutionary Guard remains intact, and there are over 200,000 of them. There are 500,000 more paramilitaries loyal to the regime. There's a standing army of nearly 1 million more who are also loyal to the regime. And at the moment, there is no sign of the uprising by the people of Iran that Donald Trump was suggesting he hoped would happen. And so that begs the question, as with any war when it gets started, is, well, what is the end game? What is victory if the people do not rise up and overthrow the regime in the way that Donald Trump has clearly hoped for? Then what does victory look like?
I can speak on behalf of the IDF and on behalf of Israel. Our goal is to remove a gun that's pointed at our heads, and it's a loaded gun. That's our goal, to degrade the Iranians' regime capabilities, to pose an existential threat for us, but also an enormous threat for the entire region. 3 continents all the way to Eastern Europe, they are posing a threat to everyone. So that is our goal. But I'll tell you something more than that. The Iranian regime is not a small army. They have multiple armies. They're an enormous country, 10 times the population of Israel. We did not say this would be something short or simple. But we do this not because it's easy, because we need to. Because if we don't do this right now, we'll face something much, much worse later. And success for us, if you're asking victory for us, would mean that we would not need to fight Iran for a long time to come. Maybe it's because we've degraded them so far, and maybe it's because they're not trying to kill us after this operation is all said and done. But what we want to do is make a real change, take this loaded gun that's to our heads and remove it for a prolonged period of time.
But that, just finally, that does seem to be an acceptance on your part, and correct me if I'm wrong, that victory may end up with the regime intact because it's so big and the tentacles spread so far it's impossible to overthrow that regime or to change it in any conventional sense, but that it becomes so neutered that it no longer represents a clear and present threat to Israel. Is that what you're saying?
Well, as an IDF spokesperson, we're looking at military threats and how we deal with those threats and remove them from Israel, and we're looking at those threats and acting to remove them actively. Now, everyone in the Middle East understands how dangerous this regime. People in Israel remember having good relationships with Iran. We're not in war with the people of Iran. We would be happy to see them liberated, but that's not an official goal of the war. That is not a military goal. By the way, I have Iranian family and a little bit far past. But we would be
Ouch.
happy to not need to fight this war. But we have to fight this war right now because this is a regime that for 50 years has been doing, not just saying, but doing everything they can to kill us. And
Yeah,
last
he's
year alone, Pierce,
he's
this is amazing.
self-telling. He's
While they've been in the worst
self-reporting.
economical situation in Iran, maybe in their entire history, people had no water. They invested almost $1 billion in proxies in the Middle East, most of it going to Hezbollah. So when people in Iran don't have water, this regime
What a
is doing
liar.
everything they
What
can
a
to kill
piece
us.
of shit.
So I think everyone agrees this regime is not good. But our goal to this operation, military goals, is to look at the threats, to make sure that Israel is not
It's a
not
fucking
posing an
American,
existential
too.
threat, and to act against it.
Tell because he's
Okay,
from
IDS
like
spokesman,
Minnesota.
Nada Shoshani, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Pierce.
Okay, let's go back to the panel. Let me bring in Josh Hammer there. I mean, it just seems to me that, you know, I've got a lot of military in my family. My brother was a British Army colonel. My brother-in-law was a British Army colonel, and so on. You know, the rule one of when you start a war is you've got to know what victory looks like for everyone's sake, for the armed forces that take part in it, for the people of the countries that you're at war with, and so on. And yet it seems here no one seems to be quite sure. Is the goal regime change? If so, how does that get achieved without boots on the ground? Most experts think that's completely impossible with a country the size of Iran. If it's not regime change, is it a damaged regime which stays in power, a bit like we've seen with, say, Venezuela? You know, where's the victory here? When does this war end because victory has been achieved?
No!
And what does that victory look like?
I got one. I got him. We got him.
So, Piers, I can speak for what I believe is America's national interest in this war and what I think Donald Trump's end goal is.
Right.
I obviously can't speak for a different country. I think that Nadav just spoke quite well from his country's perspective. From a U.S. perspective, I think that Pete Hegseth and General Kane, I hear Cenk Uygur doing the whole anti-Semitic thing. Okay, very, very predictable. So says Khamenei's chief not for propaganda. Okay.
Sorry, can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Of course, Josh Hammer is an American. I profoundly disagree with Josh Hammer's political views, but he's an American Jew. He's not an Israeli. We should be clear about these things.
Yeah, I mean, when you've lost Peter Beinart, you have seriously lost the debate. I would just say that.
I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful about this. Cenk.
No, Peter.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with Jewish Americans. No, it has to do with scum who represent Israel and are loyal to Israel. And by the
Nothing
way,
Jewish.
It's not at all just Jewish Americans. It's actually mostly Christians like Lindsey Graham and
Yeah,
Ted
thank you
Cruz and
for
Trump
straightening
and
them out.
Biden and Kamala Harris, who serve Israel like dogs.
Khamenei's stenographer and apologist has some words to say here. Let's get back to Pierce's question. Okay, so America's interest, Pierce, as defined by Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane at their Pentagon press conferences for the past few days, is, as I understand it, as follows. At minimum, the severe crippling of the Iranian regime, the severe decapitation of their ballistic missile programs, preventing them from acquiring intercontinental ballistic missiles that can reach Western Europe and perhaps the east coast of the United States, finally delivering a fatal blow to their nuclear program. There has not been a clear articulation as to whether or not the goal here is to see the entire mullahs, the entire IRGC, all of that to be ended. In fact, if I'm being very candid with you, I think that there is actually a real world where a year from now, I think that it actually could look like what you suggest it could look like. This could look like a Delcy Rodriguez, post-Chavez, post-Maduro type situation in Venezuela. I do think it's also possible, to be clear, that the exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi could be called back in to lead some sort of transition period. There could be a civil war. I don't really know, frankly. I don't think that anyone knows exactly what it's going to look like. But
Get wrecked!
Is to deliver a severe crippling to this most despotic and tyrannical regimes, and at minimum, if nothing else, to give the non-clerical, the non-theocratic, non-Islamo-fascist elements within the country of Iran, of which there are many. That's the majority of the country here. Tens and tens of millions of people.
This guy's a disgusting human being.
Slaughtered by the horrific regime that Cenk Uygur is infamously now calling courageous there. It's to give them a fighting chance to take back their country. That is the goal here. Whether or not it will all work out, who knows? It could be just dealing with a severely crippled IRGC, a less radical mullah that is a more restrained second, third-rate power in the region there. That's entirely possible. But for now, I think it's going staggeringly well, and we should definitely applaud all of our efforts.
I mean, Peter Beinart, it seems to me that notwithstanding the confusion about the mission statements that have been made by the Americans and Israelis, that it seems to me a gigantically stupid strategic error by the Iranians to start attacking all the other Gulf states. All they seem to have done by doing that is, rather than, as they've tried to do in recent years, put up a wedge between Saudi Arabia and Israel, for example, by what they did in helping Hamas commit the atrocities of October the 7th. What they hoped by doing that, one of the aspirations clearly was to stop Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords. But here, by attacking sites in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Dubai, what they've done is galvanize these Gulf states now against Iran, and ironically, on the side of America and Israel. I would say it's now far more likely that Saudi Arabia will end up joining the Abraham Accords than it was last week.
Yeah, it may well be a strategic mistake for Iran to do that, but I'm not Iranian. I'm an American. I get on the subway every day in New York, and I see people who our government isn't giving the basic decencies of life, a home, enough food. And then I think, is it a good use of my government's money to be spending billions and billions of dollars to attack a country that, with an absolutely odious regime that poses no threat to the United States? I mean, come on, let's be real, right? Iran doesn't have a single nuclear weapon. The United States has thousands of nuclear weapons.
I agree.
You know how much more? The United States probably spends as much on its military in a day as Iran spends in a year. Right? You think you can go to the American people who can see that this country has desperate, we don't give our people health care, we have a deteriorating infrastructure, people are suffering, and say this is the best use of our money? Beyond that, I just want to say, because I would like you, Pierce, if you could, to get one of the parents of those 175 children who were killed in that school that the United States or Israel bombed in southern Iran,
Well,
and
yeah, but
ask
hang on.
people
Okay.
who support
But
this
Peter,
war
but Peter.
to say
All
to
right,
them that this was worth it.
Peter, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, because we went through all this. We've been through all this in Gaza, and I've learned to be patient about these things, because we don't actually know for a fact yet what happened with that school. It was clearly an appalling incident. Clearly, many, many young girls were killed in that school. Clearly, the school used to be, until recently, part of the Revolutionary Guard base there.
Okay, we're done. I gotta go, chat. I'll see you guys later. Mañana. Hasta mañana. See you tomorrow. Bye.